Hello and welcome back to the Macca's Talk Hockey Podcast, a podcast where me and my brother Charlie normally talk about English ice hockey, but we are joined by Dan instead. Obviously, Charlie's on his little break for now. And we've also got another special guest, another fellow National League, but also does all the other English ice hockey leagues as well. We've got Anthony Russell from Banners on the Wall. Anthony, thank you for joining us, first of all.
No worries. As I just said to you before we started recording, we've got Jack Mac, we've got the honorary Mac, and on tonight I will be the plastic Mac.
Yeah, you've got plenty of books behind you. Do you want to
Yeah,
just
the
talk?
hockey shelf. The hockey
Yeah.
shelf is here. So in my house, I'm in the room that we call the library. Because my wife writes, I write. We both do a lot of reading. So you've got a variety of books here. Unfortunately, the hockey bookshelf is actually sort of around
Out
my
of the
sort of waist
camera.
height. So it's all down here. So this is why, because we're in the BOTW What's Current Stream set. So we have the hockey shelf here behind me. Look at that, Dan. Look, it's a Stanley Cup with the Toronto Maple Leafs thing on it.
Nah,
That's out of a.
Wow, long
Uh,
time ago, eh, Dan?
well, not
there
I'm
we
not a
go.
Leafs fan. I'm not a Leafs fan, but I got that in a tin of Maple Leaf centenary upper deck cards. So I've got a bunch of different things. We got a signed Johnny Bower card, another one for the Leafs
Nice.
fans that I can't do because of the light. That's
Was
there.
better than our backgrounds.
Yeah, I've got pucks and bits and pieces. I've got a signed Lars Eller puck. Got one signed by Antti Niemi, and I've got a uh, Olaf Kolzig. So as a Capitals fan, Olaf Kolzig is the reason I'm a Capitals fan. So I have signed one by Odie the goalie, bunch of different things. And I know you're an Oilers fan, Jack. So I've even got little Mark Messier
Oh,
that I
nice.
got from the Hockey Hall of Fame. And then we've got a few other bits and pieces. We've got got some signs and stuff that people made for me. Got the OV Tim Hortons mini stick and stuff like that. And then there's this that my mum brought me back from Canada
Jelly.
because my cousin lives
Oh.
over there. So I have he even has little skates on.
They cost a
But yes,
fortune now at the moment. For the people who are just listening, Anthony's basically just showing us a few of his items, which you've probably heard. But yeah, Jelly Cat, which is I think the in thing for the
yeah,
younger people now. But
He'll
do you want to
be
just tell us a
he'll be
bit
putting
of?
them up for sale at the end of the episode.
Yeah.
eBay is your friend.
Do you want to just tell us quickly where we can find your stuff and basically, yeah, what kind of stuff you're doing?
Oh, he says quickly switching into his YouTube voice. Bannersonthewall.wordpress.com is my site. If you're not familiar with the bits and pieces that I do, Banners on the Wall will be 14 years old next month. We just published the 1,000th article on the website a couple
I
of
saw
weeks
that
ago,
one.
where I tried to break British hockey with a couple of sensible ideas, which of course went down about as well as you'd expect people to when I suggest massively changing anything. My other great idea was that the third, fourth place game in the Elite League playoff weekend, the winner should get another import for the year after. Um, but right on the website about games that I go to, I do a series called Hockey Stories where I kind of do like long in-depth bits and pieces. Some of it's written, some of it are interviews. I've just done one with Jamie Thompson from Scottish Ice Hockey about things up there. YouTube, Wednesday nights, 8 p.m. What's Current Stream, every game from across the entire NIHL, National Division, all the way down to the bottom, Leeds to Lee Valley. We go through absolutely anything and everything. Can I tell you about the wonders of Telford Tigers 2? Everybody, and the ridiculous amount of goals that they score now. Vladimir Lucas decided he wants to
It's a
play Div
joke.
2 hockey.
And Lucas Price did a couple games, I believe, for them as well. But I'm also
Yes.
going to be joining you. Wow, this will be out, I think, Wednesday morning. So I'll be joining you Wednesday evening, 8 p.m.
Following Wednesday. Following Wednesday. We're getting the
Sorry,
tech sorted.
following
Yeah, I've
Wednesday. We'll get
yeah,
it
I've got some.
planned.
Yeah, I'm fiddling with the tech, so I didn't want to drop us into
Wow,
that one until I've had a
it will
chance to
be
do some
after that.
testing.
It'll be after that MK Leeds double header, which will be a great one. So we can talk about that next week.
Exactly. It was entirely intentional. It had nothing to do with the fact I just need to play around with all the settings. It was all to do with Leeds and MK, obviously. 14
Absolutely.
years of experience of doing this. We just guess and everything works out.
Oh, technology is it doesn't work at a lot of the team stuff, but hey, that's you live and you learn from loads of things. So yeah, thanks for joining us today. And we normally start with the news, but we do actually have an interview of Jack Cooper as well, Romford captain. I'm doing that tomorrow. Charlie might jump in, he might not. It depends if he's free or not. But we'll just talk about the fight, the final coming up. about captaincy this season. So it'll be interesting to see what he has to say about that. And he had a little scrap as well. We were saying off camera he had a fight yesterday in the game against Solway. So I'm sure we'll have a laugh about that one. But into the news then, and the first bit of news which I've got, which we didn't talk about last week because it happened after, is Tom Palmer left the Peterborough Phantoms to join the Romford Raiders. And Dan, did that surprise you? Obviously, him leaving Peterborough on deadline day, you could call it hockey deadline day, I think it was. But he's gone to Leishram's Romford Raiders, who Leishram has given opportunities to a lot of those lads.
Yeah, I think he had a bit more of an expectation going into this season. Obviously, we know what he can sort of do, and coming into a Peterborough team with Slava as a coach sort of gives players opportunities. But he was never really, you never really noticed him.
Yeah.
He was never really like out there like we've seen before. So I think maybe for himself, he might have just needed a bit of a change of scenery,
Yeah.
maybe just play a different style. Obviously, Slava likes to play to a set style, and it might not obviously suit Palmer. Whereas if you go to Romford, it might suit him a bit better. He's sort of Yokoyama going from Telford to Raiders. It suited him a lot better. But yeah, it'll be interesting. I think he might have needed that move, and I think he was probably thinking about it for a while, and that's why it took all the way to the deadline for it to go ahead.
Obviously, Anthony, they brought in Hartman from the Lightning, which I think was a nice little move, and it's someone who I think will really work hard under Slava, being a young lad. Do you think it was just, as Dan said, just to change of scenery? And Romford seemed to be, it's quite a young team, Romford. They've got their older guys, but there's a lot of youngsters. You're talking Harvey Briggs, Tomalin. I think Palmer will fit in quite well with that kind of group.
I think the Hartman signing kind of made Palmer's decision for him a little bit in that sense, because of course Palmer coming in quite readily. Obviously, there's been a bit more turnover in the last year or two, certainly last season than the season before with Peterborough, particularly in that sort of top six for them. Palmer stepping in was never going to be a top six player. That was never a skill set really in Sheffield. It wasn't going to be a skill set here. And then all of a sudden they bring in another guy. That's ice time kind of cut where Romford are kind of needing a bit of extra depth. And also, given them Romford's relatively wonky form since making the cup final, a different person into the locker room, a different guy into the lineup, a bit of extra added depth as well, particularly where you're not sure what's kind of happening. Reed Morrison's obviously come in and he's been okay rather than absolutely amazing. So another guy, Palmer can score goals on occasions. You can put him in your top nine and get something out of him. So I think there's a bunch of different factors to it. The style thing, I mean, let's be honest here. Romford's a bit more of a free-flowing style necessarily. It's not quite as structured as what Peterborough do. And so, like Dan said, sometimes that works for people. We've seen it work really, really well for some players and less well for others.
Yeah, I think a couple of examples where it has worked. You're talking Jasper Foster, Jarvis Hunt. I think they've really, really come on the last couple of years. And I think Palmer just to switch up. And I'm excited to see him in that Romford team because, as you said, Anthony, they do have a different style. And I think that might suit him a bit more because Sheffield always had a bit more of an attacking style when he played a bit for the Steel Dogs as well. So maybe it might be a fresh start. And I think he's actually going to get along really well with some of those young lads. I know Romford's a very tight-knit team with the likes of TJ, Harvey, Tomlin as well. So yeah, good luck to Tom Palmer at the Raiders. Unfortunately, they've signed 3 players now, Morrison, Norcliffe and Palmer, who all won't be able to play in that final, but they will be able to play the rest of the season, and they should be able to play enough games. I think it's 12 or 14 to put them in playoffs. So I think Palmer's signed
25%.
Yeah,
25% of league
right
games
time
must be played to qualify for playoffs, so they should all be into that point. Of course, Norcliffe had already played a couple of games for them anyhow, so his threshold is lower. Because you had to have played a cup game. And I can't remember what games it is that George has guested in for them. So
it was only the 2.
Qualifies.
It was the MK and Swindon.
So he's out.
Swindon.
Fair enough.
So because they added that rule in. I think I messaged you about anyone over 23 or over they can only have maximum 3 games, which we both talked about. We see both sides of it, kind of thing.
Yeah, you get the ability to guess because, of course, this is what you get with Harvey Stead stepping back up and playing for the Bees on occasion. Because, of course, he's plying his trade on the high road in Streatham this year, just because change of family circumstances dictated that. But yeah, there's rationale for it, and it's more to do with players going down necessarily than it is kind of going up. But yeah, there's frustrations to it. Some decisions, unfortunately, are arbitrary, but they have to be made. That's the nature of governing sport sometimes.
I'll be interested to see, just last one quickly before that final, because we will preview it next week. But it'll be interesting to see if Lacey is eligible, but is whether he is able to play in it. I know they've got Reed playing right now, but obviously Lacey's had so many little injuries and niggles, which has been so unlucky this season. But he is eligible, so it'll be interesting to see if he steps in just for the 2 games. There was one other signing. It was a re-signing. And we talked about him, Dan. John Strange actually picked him out and said for us to watch out for him this season. That's Torren Anderson, 2-year extension with the Solway Sharks. And I've got to say, for 17 years old coming into the league, some of the highlight reels goals he's scored, Dan, have been quite something. That through the legs dangle and then through the leg shot, which he scored, was quite special. He's definitely a talent. He's got quite a big size as well for the age he is. I think maybe as he gets a bit older, he'll bulk out a bit more. But what an extension for the Sharks! Just securing one of those young lads who I have no doubt other teams would try to snap up next season.
Yeah, he's a really confident player. He's a player that's come into this league. Obviously, it's his first full season, and he's played exactly how you'd want a youngster like that to play. He's really sort of made that ceiling a lot higher for him playing up to this level now.
Yeah.
And we were always talking about Solway. Obviously, Biz, they're up there. The player pool isn't as big, so they need to lock up those younger guys and just sort of start building that core. And what better player to start building your core with than Torren Anderson, because you know what he's going to bring, and he looks like a guy that's only going to keep getting better and better. And I think it's a no-brainer for him as well to stay with Solway. Why wouldn't you move from a club that you feel comfortable at? You from Scotland, and you can just build within. And I think that's a really smart move from both parties.
Yeah, obviously, we've seen him a bit, Anthony, this season, playing with Gardiner and Dunbar. He's been given opportunities with some of those top guys, which at other teams he probably might not have had. And I think it's a very smart move for him that he is guaranteeing himself to get a good amount of ice time at Solway rather than maybe chancing himself at another team and maybe not quite getting the experience and minutes, which he's definitely going to get at Solway these next couple of years. And he's Scottish, of course, so he's been able to stay at home as well at a young age.
Yeah, Kilmarnock boy, so he's only about an hour or so away. And having just double checked there, I'd forgotten his height, 6'4" at such a young age as well. So he's a big old boy. 54 points and 24 points in the SNL last year, and that level of quality in the SNL is rising. Dan talks about the smaller player pool. The player pool across Scotland's actually getting much bigger. The issue that Solway have is post-COVID, their actual level of under 18s is still quite small, but they've got a good number of 16s, good number of 14s. So actually in the next couple of years, that player pool, particularly in southwest Scotland for Dumfries, when you take into account Kilmarnock and Paisley just about an hour to the north, that sort of immediate catchment area for what Solway are going to be able to do is going to increase, as well as potentially youngsters from looking across from Billingham and Whitley, because they may not want to drive down to Leeds, they may not want to drive down to Hull. They might look towards what's happening in Scotland and kind of go that direction. Anderson's obviously a scorer and was a scorer at lower level, so Martin Grubb's very, very good at the thing I bemoan a lot of coaches for. Set your kids up to succeed, play them in the role that they play. There's no point playing Torren Anderson as a crash and banger. He's not a Callum Boyd. He's not he's not like an elite league style Jason Hewitt. He likes to score goals. So playing with people that will let him try to score goals. And shock horror, he does really well when he's played to his strengths. What a crushing surprise that must be for people.
Yeah, he's got 13 points this season already, and he's only just turned 18 as well, so a big future ahead of him. And as I said, he's got the size, he's got the build advantage over quite a lot of players, quite a lot of youngsters coming through. So really positive news for Solway. And you're seeing a lot of teams now locking these players up for not one but 2 seasons. So yeah, I think teams are doing that a lot more the last couple seasons. The final little bit of news, I guess, it come out today. Well, yesterday, but Bees put it out that Gabai scored his 400th point, and I gotta say, I've always spoke to you and Charlie, Dan, about how I love Dom Gabai. Don't get me wrong, I'd love to see him, what he'd be like in a top end team, but the loyalty he showed to the Bees, season upon season, he's just put the points up no matter what. He's so strong on the puck. I think he's the perfect kind of National League player. And when he first come in, I think his first game was against Swindon away. They did lose that game, but he scored both goals against Swindon. And from that game, even when I was 13, 14, or maybe 15 years old, I was like, oh, he's a flipping good player. But 400 points, that is some achievement, isn't it?
I'm pretty sure he actually played his first game, or he got his first point against Basingstoke.
Oh, it was Basingstoke away,
He,
and then his first home game he played against Swindon.
Yeah, because I remember he did the wrap round and then did a backhand shelf.
Yeah.
Quite a nice goal. Just a typical goodbye goal. Go around the net, can't knock him off the puck.
Nope.
He just goes round and shelves it. So, but yeah, he's been unbelievable for Bees, and I think I was glad to see a few seasons ago when he got given that player coach role. I think he deserves to have been rewarded for the loyalty he's shown to that team, and the way that he's obviously made his presence in that team. He's how many seasons has he been there for now? I mean,
I think 6 seasons now.
Yeah, and he's already established himself, and you can't really imagine a Bees team without Gabai now. Like he's just sort of made it his team, and I think you can definitely see the different style of play that Bees have got as well now with him. Obviously being more in charge. I know you got Tate on the bench, but you still got that sort of Dom Gabai presence as well. Yeah. And yeah, he's just a really great player that's sort of grown as he's got more comfortable in the league as well.
Sorry, it's his fifth season, but he's got much higher than a point per game in every single season he's played. And Anthony, I'm sure you've been watching him over the seasons. They've played a lot of games against Basingstoke as well. What do you like most about Dom Gabai's game?
I remember very vividly actually watching Dom Gabai play for the Newcastle North Stars over in Australia. I make a big point of watching a lot of Australian hockey during our off season because it's so readily available. And he ended up going home quite early that season in Newcastle. He broke his wrist. Which is why he went home. And I remember because he started that first season for the Bees. He actually started it. I believe he was in Brest in the French league, and he came across. And I remember messaging a friend of mine who worked for some media outlet bits and pieces over in New South Wales, and just said, like, he wasn't there for very long and obviously got hurt, but like, what's he like? And he said, he's just a really nice guy who just happens to be really, really good at hockey. And I think that's kind of the premise. I mean, I've heard very few people say very many bad words about Dom Gabai, the person, but he obviously was there, went away back to France for a little bit and then came back. And I think that kind of says something about how some imports will kind of come and it's the job, and some imports will come and will kind of get the organization, will kind of get the club and kind of hang around as a result. And I think that's what Dom Gabai has done. And for whatever reason, the Lord gifted him with the ability to be able to put himself through very, very tiny gaps between people, as we have seen on a variety of occasions. And he's very, very good at putting the puck in the place he wants it to go. Hi, Rennie Marr. Hope you enjoyed Saturday.
Oh, he's a natural goal scorer. And I think that's so key in this league. You just got to be able to put the puck in the back of the net, and he's done that for Bees on countless seasons. And I think it's actually helped. I know they're 11th. I know they're not doing as well as last season. I do think the standard of the league's gone up, but I think it has helped having Tate come in as well and just help him on the coaching a bit, so he can fully commit as the player, because the Bees had a lot of change over the summer. But yeah, fair play to Dom Gabai. And hello and welcome back. I'm delighted to be joined by the Romford Raiders captain, Jack Cooper. How you doing, mate?
I'm very good, thank you. Thanks for having me on.
No worries. And a really good weekend for you guys as well, kind of getting back to winning ways, and a 4-point weekend as well.
Yeah, we needed it. We was in a slump. struggling to find wins, and yeah, it was a weekend definitely needed, especially coming up here to the cup final.
Yeah, I think you've kind of hit like the right patch of form coming up to that final as well. And
Yeah,
you boys seem to be able to play quite well in Peterborough. I think that's the second time you've won in Peterborough this season, actually.
yeah. Like most recent years, we seem to really struggle there. They're very good at home. They know how
Yeah.
to play their rink. They trap up. They're very good with their systems. But this year, we've sort of seemed to have the better of them, which is makes a change.
Yeah, you've managed to get a lot of goals there as well.
Yeah.
We'll take it all the way back then, before we get onto this season and the final and stuff. How did you get into hockey? Because obviously you grew up in that London area. Was it Romford you grew up in?
Yeah. Yeah.
So how did you get into hockey? Was it a bit similar to all the other lads?
No. So my aunt is actually Canadian.
Oh wow,
Um,
nice.
yeah. So when she got with my uncle, I must have been 5 at the time. They asked me about getting into sports.
Yeah.
Tried me at football at the start, and I think I played in goal or something. I love football, but I just
Yeah.
didn't enjoy it like playing wise. And then they said, "What about ice hockey?" I've never heard of it, and they took me skating in Romford's old rink.
Nice.
And then I think literally like the week later or the couple of weeks later, I signed up. They did like a 6 week course back in when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And you do your like 6 weeks trial, and if you like it, then you can put money in and obviously become a junior. And then it all started from there. I've not missed a week since.
Was there any of the lads who you've played with now or over the last couple seasons who you kind of grew up playing with?
So me and you'll know him very well, Glenn Billen.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, Glennie, yeah.
we started the 6 week trial at Romford on the same day.
Really?
Yeah, so I played all of my juniors with him until he went to OHA.
Yeah.
Tom's Rockkiss,
Oh yeah.
Callum Wells, he doesn't play for us anymore. Brandon, Jakey,
Yeah.
all them boys. So yeah,
Good good group of lads who've all
yeah,
kind of made it at that national level, and some of them even pushed on further as well.
exactly. Yeah, and it's good to obviously when we play against each other, to at least see each other and speak to each other after the game. So it's nice to keep in touch.
I've got to say, as a Swindon fan watching Glennie the last couple seasons, has he always been that just so hockey smart kind of player ever since
Mate,
he started playing?
yeah, his hockey IQ is like through the roof. Like to have him as a centre as well, he's in my eyes, he's probably the best British centre in the league.
Oh, he's
He's
nuts, isn't
so
he?
smart. Yeah, he battles. He's strong. He's got a good shot, good part. He's just got the complete game that you want from a centre. But yeah, like great pickup for you boys.
Nice. Yeah, it's a really good crop of talent, and you obviously decided to stay in that London area, and you've kind of worked yourself up a bit, and then you played for Haringey a bit when I think you were 18, 19 years old.
Yeah, yes,
Was
17,
that your
18, I
first kind
think.
of taste of men's hockey?
Yeah, so I played for Romford. It was called Romford Fury at the time. It was
Oh,
my
okay, yeah,
first,
yeah,
like first sort of scene. I think I made 2 or 3 games I managed to play for them, and then the rink shut down.
yeah,
Obviously, Raiders made the transition over to Lee Valley, but I just knew at my age I wouldn't have got the development that I needed on ice.
yeah.
So I went to Haringey trials, and I think I'd done like a year and a little bit there, and it got me more confident playing in the senior level, and then I went to Raiders from there.
How was it? I've heard so many stories from Romford fans. How was it playing at that old rink? Because we know how intimidating it is now, but I've heard how even more intimidating it was back then.
Yeah, yeah. So I never actually got to play a Raiders game there, which
Did
is
you not? Ah,
no, no. But we there was one charity game that I remember from when I was in juniors, and we I don't know what it was for. It was obviously some sort of charity, but all of the
yeah.
Raiders fans come and watched our junior game before the Raiders game. So we managed to play in like a packed out Romford, if you like. I think we played Slough.
Yeah.
Um, and I had something. I used to be a forward back in juniors. I don't score goals now, but when I was in juniors, I used to score quite a bit. And me and Jacob Ranson, we played juniors together.
Oh yeah.
And I think I scored 6 goals in that game, and he got 6 assists, and he scored 3, and I got the other 3 assists on his goal. And to hear like all the Romford chants that they was doing,
Yeah.
it was something special. But yeah, never actually got to play a senior game for Raiders in that barn.
Oh, okay, but I think I can't remember what season it is. What season was the first one where it split up and you had quite a few of the EPL teams come into the national? Was that kind of the most competitive kind of season you kind of played in to first
Ye-
come in?
Yeah. So when I first joined, it was still split to like I think we had like Invicta, Streatham,
Yeah,
all them sort of boys, and I think Swindon was like in the EPL if you like.
yeah.
And then when that transition went over, you could definitely see the difference in the level of hockey that he was playing and how quick it was. But now it's just obviously it's been a good few years now, so you sort of adapted to it.
Yeah, I've got to say I'm really happy like Romford chose to come up with when it went back to the national.
Yeah,
I'm sure you were happy as well that Romford made that step up because it meant that you were able to play at that higher level as well.
yeah, 100. Because at the end of the day, we know we want to play the highest level that we possibly can in our career, and being able to have that opportunity is obviously what you play for. So yeah, I was happy that we made that transition up. And although we probably was looked at one of the underdogs, probably
Yeah.
still are now, but it's just good to just battle and it makes you better as a player playing against better people as well. So
I've got to bring it back to, I know it was maybe a tough moment, but also one to remember as well at Coventry. Was that your
yeah,
first time playing at Coventry in
yeah.
front of all the different fans? What was that like, obviously, with the team you've grown up with as well?
Yeah, it was like a very personal, like proud moment to be a part of that team that year.
Yeah.
Like Romford is, I've only ever obviously I've had that little spell at Haringey, but
Yeah.
that's Romford is my home club. So to be able to be on that team,
Yeah.
and get to Coventry, and then just seeing all the fans on that first day. Obviously, like I said, I've never played there, so I don't know what it's like. And when we pulled up to the rink on the Saturday and just seeing how many fans there was just out there, just all chanting for us, yeah, it was something special.
I think it was one of them where you were the underdogs going into it, and you almost had that attitude of, you know what, we got nothing to lose here, and you had some big guys step up. Obviously, you had Roberts that season as
Yeah,
well, and Ethan played really well. And I've got to say, I think if that final went on for another 5-10 minutes, I really do think you pip Leeds to it. But just how
yeah.
was that whole experience for you, and the boys? Because I think that kind of took you guys up a level to say, all right, yeah, we can compete here with those top guys.
Yeah, like so obviously beating Peterborough in the playoffs to get to Coventry,
Yeah,
we
I
was
remember that. Was crazy.
yeah, so that we went into that game on the Sunday, obviously goals down, and we just never sort of gave up. And obviously we had Matty Gomesic that year as well, which was an unbelievable player, and he got us out of that. And then just going from that moment to, well, we weren't supposed to be in Coventry. Now we are in Coventry. Like
Yeah.
you said, you've got that sort of underdog attitude. You've got nothing to lose. No one, you're not supposed to be here. So we went into that game and just played our game. And I think that third period on Saturday against Sheffield was probably like the best third period I've ever
Oh
seen
yeah.
us ever play. And then going into Sunday, a team that we've not beaten since I think the first year that they joined our league. I don't even think they was called Lead Night. What was they called? Leeds Chiefs or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. It was
Um,
one of their first seasons.
yeah, I think that's the only time we've beat them. So we like what a game to sort of get that snap that streak, and I think it's just the nerves got to us in the first 5-10 minutes.
Yeah.
But
They
like
took
you
quite
said,
a lead, didn't they?
yeah, that's it. We had like I think 3 goals down in like 10 minutes or whatever. But like you said, I think if
Swindon have
that
been there before, don't worry. Last year we went 4 down in like 10 minutes.
mate, they just they're such a good team and
They
they just
are,
come
yeah.
out flying. And if you're not prepared for it, then you got no chance. But yeah, like I said, I think if we had an extra 5 minutes, I think we sort of lift the trophy there. I think their coach said it to our coach at the time after the game
Yeah.
as well. But it's hockey, isn't it? Like weren't meant to be.
You mentioned one player, I've got to say, like watching him in that big game, Matt Gomesic, that's probably one of the best performances from his centre I've seen at both ends of the ice. Like his defensive game, the way he read the game. We talked about Billing, but he was just. I think he picked it up even more as the season went on, and
Yeah,
that
he
playoffs
did.
for me, he was the best player there.
Yeah, he was just something else, and he was
Yeah,
like such a lovely guy as well, and you can just learn off of him, and even like practicing with him and just seeing the amount of like he never had a day off, never had a shift off. Didn't matter if the puck weren't going in for him, he was still flying about, getting in the dirty areas that
yeah,
some imports don't go into, and just like he said, his complete game, defensive side and the offensive side was just you can't fault the guy, and he was just such a good guy.
Yeah, I think I still follow him now, and he's an agent as well, isn't he?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
Um, we'll fast forward a couple seasons then, the end of last season, and it was quite an unknown. Obviously, the takeover happened. We didn't know if you'd get the new ownership coming in. What was it like for you? And when did you find out that you were going to be the captain of the team this season?
yeah, it's very weird summer to be honest, because
Yeah.
we all of us didn't know what was going on.
TJ and Ethan said the same. They just didn't know.
Yeah, like no one knew. So we had like a group chat, and then me and Thomas Relf were sort of being fed information from here, there, and everywhere, and we was trying to give it to the group, but still no one sort of knew. And then once it sort of finalised, and we knew we was going to be part of the league, and then obviously Leish took over. Leish spoke to me obviously when he signed me, and then I think he told me then, or he might have told me a couple of days later. He's like,
Yeah.
like you're going to be my captain, and yeah, just sort of went from there as a proud moment. Yeah, and it's something that I've done in junior hockey, but never done in senior hockey. So it's sort of a new role that I've had to pick up and learn along the way. Same as him with coaching.
Yeah, I think it was just I was relieved first of all to see that you were going to stay in the league, because it's never nice for a team
No,
to
yeah,
leave the league. And then I was also happy that a lot of the Romford lads stayed as well and continued, even if it was a different ownership under a different coach. And I think it might have helped a bit that Leish had been at the team or around the team the season before as well.
yeah, yeah. No, definitely. Like you said, he already knew the boys.
Yeah.
And his hockey brain as well is you don't even need to speak about that. So having him as your leader, it's exciting for us as well. And you've got a player coach, so you've got someone that's going to battle with you every night. So something that I've never played under. I've always had an actual coach. Again, so something new, and then just an exciting sort of year for us. We're going to be the rebuild year, if you like, and sort of try and move things on for the next however many years, and hopefully the club progresses from then.
Obviously, we can get to the imports and some of the players in a second, but what is it like making that transition under Lation? Because I know he's a player coach, but he has been very unlucky, so he's been able to spend a lot of time on the bench. But what's it been like playing under Leish? Because I think we're seeing a bit different kind of style from Romford this season compared to previous seasons.
Yeah. So he set his standards at the start of the year, and on our first team meeting.
Yeah.
He obviously wants to play different systems, so it's like new systems for us to learn, new practices, new drills, which is sort of a breath of fresh air as well. Where under East, I'm not saying East is a bad coach. I think he's a really good coach.
Yeah.
He knows his X's and O's as well. But just having something different come in, and just a whole new style, and I think it fit at the right time as well. Where there's a complete new takeover, there's also we're learning something new as well. And like I said, with his experience and the level that he's played at, everyone just listens to him, and he's only trying to make you better as well. And like I said, he's been very unlucky this year, and I don't like to sit down on anyone. It's just he's had no luck this year, bless him.
Yeah, it has been tough actually, even just watching it as a fan. I think I was at the game where he then got that other injury after he'd just come back, and I was gutted for him. But one of the main, I think, the two imports, Miller and Schufel, obviously Leish bring them in to play together, and they have been a big part of your team. Did you expect them to be that good when they first come in?
No, well, Leish, when he was telling us about the imports, when he was describing them, he was like, one's like put up better numbers than me, he's better than me, he's faster than me, and I was like, if you're telling me someone's coming in and is better than you, then what is going on? Like, Leish is an unbelievable player.
Oh yeah.
But I take my hat off to him. Them two that he's brought in, they've just been phenomenal, and another two that never take a shift off, never take a practice off, and it just makes you better as a person.
Yeah, I think it's the fact they complement each other so well. It's like they've been brought in, and it's like they've been playing together for years. The amount of goals we see when we're at another game on our phone, and it's assisted by Shufelt, scored by Miller, or the other way around.
Other way around, yeah.
You can't stop them, can you?
No. It's that they're the, although you're sort of trying not to look for them boys to carry you and make something out of nothing, but they just seem to just do it.
Yeah.
And without them, I couldn't tell you where we'd be right now. But
that's what those imports are signed up for, isn't it? Because you only get 3 of them.
Exactly. I got my easiest assist of the year on Sunday. I literally had the puck behind my own net, and Millsy jumped on the bench, come and got the puck, and went end to end all the way back round and passed it. And Sean Barry scored, and I got a second assist. I said, I didn't even do anything. I didn't even need to skate.
I was at the game where I think you slap shot it and Shufelt tipped it, and I knew Shufelt had tipped it, but we were like, they're gonna notice, they're gonna give it to Jack, but I think they gave it to Shu in the end.
They did originally give it to me, and I was like, no, I was like, there's no way. So I went over to the refs, and I think James Griffin come over with me as well, and he was like, what are you doing? And I was like, changing the assist, and he was like, he called me a scumbag, like messing around. He was like, oh, like, worry about your points. I was like, no, I said, they give me the goal. I said, I don't want the goal. Like, I need to go to Shuey. That was a great tip.
Yeah, it was a really good tip. But it's not just been the imports. I think the thing me and Charlie have noticed a lot this season is how much opportunity Leishers gave to some of those younger guys. You're talking Harvey Briggs, first season in the national. He's getting minutes. He's been playing all across the lineup. Tomalin, we saw a glimpse of him last season. He's got his real shot. And then I think you guys bringing in Palmer, just another young lad who's going to fit in that dressing room. Leish seems to really try and get the best out of these youngsters as well.
Yeah, 100%. Like they're
and TJ.
yeah. To be fair, he's so young as well, but it just
you
feels
forget
like
how young he is, but he is just so good.
Same as me, and like you just forget because he's been in the team like last year and this year, you sort of still forget how young he is. But yeah, he even at practice, like all of the our 2-ways are there. Some other players from the Bucks that haven't signed a 2-way, but they're practicing with us. And like Sunday was a great example. We had missing Elliot Dewey, so it was just obviously 5 of our normal D. And then we had Brad Taylor, Megas, and Callum Burnett step in for us, and we actually had 2 of them as a legit pairing. Nice. And they played regular shifts like on the third line, and it's just seeing that trust, like you said. I think they've played PK and just much more minutes than I've seen before, and it just only helps them develop, and it also adds us like a little bit more depth to give us a little bit of a breather when we need it.
And also, I was going to mention, I know Ethan needs his rest now and again, especially with the final coming up, but just playing Owen and having the trust in Owen back to back in Peterborough and at home, I just think that's good management as well.
Yeah, he's such a good goalie as well.
Yeah.
And like he's also very young as well, so he's still got years to develop. But he's currently on a 3-game win streak, so
yeah. Because he won against the Bees as well. I think he's played the Bees a few times now as well.
Yeah. So I think we've sort of like put Bees as probably his team now. He's he's got the winning record against them. So why not? Why change something that's not broken?
The start of the season, then I've got to say, you guys had a cracking start. I think not many people knew what these imports are about, and they kind of shocked everyone. And they're still putting it up at that pace. And then obviously Leish has had that injury. You had Yokoyama come in, and I thought he did a really good job as well when he fit in on that second line. And you then had that patch where you guys couldn't get that win over the line. But as you said earlier, how nice is it to be able to just know that you guys can get those wins in recent weeks?
Yeah, it's just a relief. I think, like I said, the start we had, I think it helped with everyone expecting us to just be dead bottom. So I think you come out, like you said earlier, with that sort of attitude with, well, we've got nothing to lose, so why not? And I think we obviously turned a lot of heads in the league, fan wise, and obviously other teams. And coming to our place at the start of the year must have been tough for everyone, because we just seemed to just be able to just get the job done. And then, like you said, once that injury came, I think we sort of fell into a little bit of a slump, but we're still doing well in our cup games.
Yeah.
And then the MK semi-final was again something else. And then I think we've just maybe fell off a little bit, where we thought we've done a job now, but we sort of forgot about the league. And then we just needed to, once you're in that slump, it's only on us to get us out of the slump. It's hard seeing everyone's like comments of what's happening, blah blah blah. This needs change. But it's just down to us at the end of the day. Yeah. It's not on Leish. It's not on Lewis. It's down to us as players. We know we're not good enough. We need to change something, and then just getting those wins, especially them two at the weekend back to back.
Yeah.
Against two good sides as well. One that's trying to push us for a playoff spot, and then Peterborough, a great team as well that we're sort of trying to chase. Just it's a relief. We can now have a good week practice, another good couple of games, and then we've got the most important games.
I think, it's true what you said. I think every single weekend is tough now, is that you can't take any weekend lightly. If you're off it a tiny bit, you'll get punished. And I think it is, we've said it's very hard for you guys, knowing you got two eyes on that final, but you also do need to compete in the league games. I think now the final's coming up, you've almost taken that step up as the finals approaching, which I think is really positive as well.
Yeah, we, like you said earlier, we've probably hit our informed spot at the right time.
Yeah.
And just hope this weekend we have another good two performances, and then just feed off that into the final. So we're going to need everything. We're going to need everyone on their A game to be able to do it against Leeds.
The semi-final games, then, I was lucky to be at both of them. And as a neutral, they were unbelievable games. The second leg, though, obviously having that one goal leads in hockey, they can be gone in an instant. And I think the first period and a half, really, the first half of that game, obviously MK took that three goal lead, two goal lead in the tie. But Romford just have this never die attitude, which they've shown so many times this season. What was it on that night? What was said? Because I actually think you guys weren't that bad in the first period. You had quite a lot of chances. Like Jakey and TJ were buzzing, and they just couldn't quite find that final touch. And then it was those two, the two Romford lads, who ended up winning you the game, and Ethan as well. So it just sum up the feelings in that game.
It honestly, it just felt like we'd won the trophy, if that made it, like, especially the away leg. Like the home leg, I think every game that we've played against MK this year has been a very good competitive
I've been
game.
to every single one at Romford as well. It's just been unreal, the two games.
They've been such good games, and then to come out of that one with a goal lead, personally, I would have probably liked 2 or 3 goal lead. Especially going away where they're a complete different team. They're so good on home ice. And we always seem to struggle there. But going there with 1 goal lead, we knew we're pretty much going into that game dead flat, dead even. And then, like you said, they're another team away that you just have to weather that first 10, 15 minutes because they come out. And the fans there are very, very loud and very good. And if you don't weather that, then you're in a bit of trouble. And like I said, I don't think we played bad. They just capitalized on their chances.
Venus was very good, to be fair.
He's so good. He's another fantastic player. But I don't know what it was, even after the first period and after the second period break, I never felt like, me personally, I never felt like we was going to lose the game. I don't know what it was. And then just to be able to get ahead, pull back the goals, get ahead. And as soon as I knew we went ahead, I was like, we're not losing this game. And then see that goal that Ashley scored off, like literally just dumped it down the ice off the plexi. It was just, everything was just written.
Perfect empty there, wasn't it?
Exactly. Like when I see it drop, and I was like, it's written for us to win this game. It's just we was just all buzzing. Like it was just such a good atmosphere. Just great to be a part of.
And that away end as well just was bouncing. All the Romford fans, you could hear them. And just a word on them. How good have they been this season? You've had your record crowds. You've sold out a few games, which I don't think has been done since the old Lee Valley, Romford Valley games. the new ownership, I think, has played a massive part in that, in getting the word out and Romford. But just how good have they been? Because the amount of comebacks you've made this season, which you probably had no right to make
No,
a comeback in, you've done it, and they've been a massive part of that.
yeah, it's very cliche to say, but having a fan base behind you that are very loud,
Yeah.
it's like you can't explain what it does for you on the ice. But yeah, just how loud over recent years that it's been an intimidating place to play,
Yeah.
but at stages like quite quiet. Whereas this year I've seen a massive difference. Like it's so loud. If you hit someone, if you score anything, you block, Ethan makes a save, you can hear how loud it is, and all it does is just boost you up. And like
The
you said,
adrenaline, I bet, just
yeah,
gets boiling.
it's phenomenal. It's like you said at the MK. I've never heard our fans really there because their fans are just there. There's obviously over 2,000 of them, and
Yeah.
they're so loud. And then just to hear nothing but our fans at that game is
At the
just
end.
it's just something else. Like you can't explain the feeling that it gives you unless you're in the moment. But like you said, there's so many games that we probably didn't deserve to come back from. The game's pretty much done, and just having them just being so loud, it just makes us okay. Well, if they're not going to stop, we're not going to stop, and what we got to lose.
I think me and Dan, Charlie said it countless times. You guys score, if teams are off the ball for just a minute, you guys score so many goals in patches. Get 2-3 minutes, you put two in the back of their net and the game's switched just like that.
Yeah.
Has that always been a part of kind of the Romford way? Because you've done it to Swindon many times.
Yeah. I think it's just these last 2-3 years, possibly.
Yeah.
Like when we had Matty, he was another one. If a D man made a mistake or like I said, a line was just not on it for that one shift, he's probably going to make you pay. Leish was the same last year. Obviously, the other players around him, but just naming these as they normally do all the hard work, like Leish last year, and then obviously Millsy and Shuey this year. If you take a shift off against them boys, they're gonna make you pay.
Yeah.
And then all that does is just fire the rest of the team up, so then everyone just goes out flying, and then it's hockey, isn't it? I think that's why it's such an exciting sport. Before you know it, you could have 3 goals in the back of your net, and then 2 minutes later, you're 3-3.
Yeah.
I think that's just why it's such an exciting game.
And the league as well, it's just taken a whole nother step up. How has it been for you? Like we've noticed how your game's gone up as well, and I think being the captain as well, we've just noticed you've automatically taken a step up, and you've kind of fulfilled that role as well.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I think it's just subconsciously in the back of your head, you need to try and set an example for the rest of the team. Although, like I've spent many years with the majority of the boys that are in the room, it just being seen as the leader. I feel like you just need to be on your game at all times.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've had a few people say it to me. I don't know what I've changed differently in my game, but I just feel like I'm a little bit more composed and just steady, and just hope I can keep that up and help other players, obviously.
Yeah, keep it up, mate. The final then, it's not going to be easy. Obviously, the Leeds Knights, they're going to be gunning for it. They've not been able to win this trophy since coming back to the league. I think it's the only trophy they haven't won.
Yeah.
But it's Romford. Anything can happen with Romford. How are you guys kind of preparing for that? You've already got some good form going into it, which we spoke about. But yeah, is it? Have you got kind of a bit of eyes focused on that? Because you know that is going to be a big part of your season.
Yeah, I think individually we probably are looking to that weekend, but as a club in total, we just need to focus on the games that are coming up this weekend. Like I said, the league this year is very exciting to play in because you can have such a good, we could have 4 points this weekend and be 5th, 6th or whatever, and then have maybe drop 2 points and then you're back down.
You're a position down again.
Yeah, it's such a competitive league this year, which is obviously good for everyone. But we obviously need to secure our playoff spot, which is a massive goal for us, which was one of our biggest goals at the start of the year.
Yeah.
And then to do well in the cup. But like I said, we've already got there. So it's just about tackling the games that are in front of us at the minute. And then as soon as them games are out of the way, we've just got a full week of practice. And then just like I said, we've got to head into that game and everyone's got to be on their A game.
Yeah. And as much as you haven't been able to beat Leeds so far this season, the games have been very, very close. The one at your place is really close. You went to their place and they only just won it as well. So I think, as I said, anything can happen in hockey. And I think, will that just be playing in the boys' minds? Like, they are beatable.
Yeah, 100%. Like, it's probably when we go and play against, like when we play against them, we know we haven't beat them since they've been Leeds Knights, if you like. But playing them at the start of the year at home, I think we probably should have won that game.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. And away, I feel like it was probably one of the best performances that we've played on
the road.
There, I think we have beat them actually. I think we beat them with a very short bench away.
Okay, yeah.
But normally it doesn't go that way. But we put on a very good performance. I made a silly mistake near the end of the game, and that cost us a goal. Which is obviously never easy to take. But seeing other teams beat them in the league already, Bracknell have beaten them.
Yeah.
So like you said, every team in this league this year is 100% beatable. So we just need to go in there and obviously respect the team that they are and what they've got on the ice, but also not give them too much respect because we know we can be that team.
And it's only 2 games as well. It's not like it's
loads
across the season. It's just a 2-game shootout.
2 games. That's it.
You can see how it goes.
That's it.
I think that first leg is massive, though. Obviously, you guys, it's so hard to predict these kind of stuff because you went out and beat Milton Keynes in their away barn, and you could do that in Leeds. So I'm not gonna press you with any predictions or that, but it's gonna be a really. I'm gutted though that it's across the weekend when Swindon are playing, so I'm not able to go there because the previous ones were during the week. But I think that will actually be better for you guys. Would you prefer it to be on a weekend where it's just across 2 games instead of having to wait a whole week until the next game?
Yeah, 100%. Originally it was supposed to be like that.
Yeah.
But I think where our fixtures lined up, we was already playing Leeds home and away.
Okay.
So we just switched it around, which makes more sense. Everyone can be available. Then no one's got to try and work around work commitments. And then, like you said, you've got it there. If we have a great game on Saturday, we can go straight into that with the momentum on Sunday.
Yeah,
whereas if you have a good game, then like I said, you've got a week and you've got 2 more games within that.
It's annoying having a league game you have to worry about in between.
That's it. Yeah, and I feel like that's what some of our injuries come from when we was playing the MK games. Obviously, we played so many games in a short period of time, and it's a very demanding sport on your body where all of us are working as well. So yeah, being able to get that out of the way within a weekend, and we could potentially lift the first trophy that Romford's seen in many, many years is a very exciting time.
Yeah. So as much as I'm not able to go, I'm glad that both teams are going to get a real fair shot at it as well, because I think people just forget that players is semi-professional. I know it's people. I think it's more professional, but people have other jobs as well. Like Brandon. Brandon, do you want to talk about that in that semi-final? Brandon turned up like at the end of the first period. Like he'd come from work and was stuck in traffic, and he got thrown straight into the game, didn't he?
I completely forgot about that, to be honest. But yeah, like you said, it just obviously work at the end of the day. It's people's livelihoods. People need to go and earn their money to pay their bills. And yeah, just unfortunate. Obviously, it's a midweek game as well, so he's hitting rush hour at that time. He's leaving work and with no warm-up, no off-ice warm-up, no on-ice warm-up, just be able to go straight into the game. And he didn't look like he was out of place either. No. He's one of them players that I think can just fly around the ice. Doesn't matter what happens, he's just flying around the ice. So he came in and was a massive impact for us. I think he got right in their face when he first had his first shift. I think he drove the net and he was just there, just doing his normal thing, and it just helps.
He always scores a breakaway against Swindon. It's so frustrating. I'd love to see how many breakaway goals he's got in his career, because he's one of the quickest players in the league. Moving on to the rest of the season, though, unfortunately, you brought in Morrison. I don't think he's able to play in the final because of that cup rule. But
Yeah,
this last weekend, it seems like he's really kind of settled in now. And sometimes it does take imports a bit of time to kind of get used to the league, because the National League's quite a weird league to come into.
it is.
But
Yeah.
it sounds like he had a really good weekend. 6 points, 3 in each game.
Yeah, the first week he came over, he came to practice on the Thursday with 2 hours sleep. So yeah, the first
My
time we see him on
goodness.
the ice, he must have been shattered, bless him.
Obviously.
Yeah, and then we had practice Friday and we had a day off on Saturday and then a game Sunday.
Yeah.
And we was under the assumption that he wasn't going to be registered in time for Sunday.
Yeah.
But he got told, I think, at 12:30 on Sunday in the afternoon that he's playing. And he had just spent his whole day on Saturday touring London, because he was just under the assumption he wasn't playing.
Yeah.
So I think you can't really judge him off that first game, but I feel like he settled in. And then, like you said, the few more games that have gone on, he's really showing what he can do. He's a big body, and he's a great passer. So I think he will cause teams some sort of havoc.
Yeah, I've got to bring it up because when me and Dan went down to the Romford, I forgot which one it was. Your granddad showed us a few magic tricks, and he told us that he shows you a couple before the game as well, and it kind of just takes your mind off that pressure. He's actually really good at it. Some of those tricks, I generally don't know how he's done them. So shout out, William.
Yeah, no, he just randomly come to us one day. I think it was last year. Like he normally he's there before us as we come in. He's like, "Do you want to see a magic trick?" And I was like, "What do you mean a magic?" I thought he was gonna have like a little laugh or something.
Yeah.
He brought out his cards and he said, "I've just started learning magic." And honestly, some of the tricks that he does is, I'm me and Ethan just like, what on earth? Like, he's not even got sleight of hand as well because he's old.
Yeah.
Like I'd understand if he was. I can't see him do no sleight of hand, and he still manages to blow my mind. But yeah, like you said, it's a little ritual that me and Ethan do. We have a couple of magic tricks before we go up into the room, and it just sort of takes your mind off things and then just starts you off. But if he normally messes the trick up, we normally lose that game. So if he messes it up, then it's all in the back of my head. So he messes me around a little bit as well. But no, it's all good fun.
Got to make sure he's got the ones which he's practiced a lot. And I think he was telling us he learned loads of them in lockdown.
He did,
and he kind of
I think he sat on YouTube and just watched a load of the magic tricks. Like his memory is terrible as well, so I don't know how he remembers what he's got to do for each trick, but it keeps him occupied.
I'm looking forward to seeing a couple more when I come back down to Romford. How nice is it as well that your family's able to come and watch, and obviously that's where you've grown up, and your granddad's still coming to watch all the home games.
Yeah, no, it's so I got brought up by my nan and granddad, so lived in their care, and my nan travelled the whole of the UK with me to take me to the games that I needed to in juniors whilst my granddad was working. And then now to be able to, my granddad does the penalty box for the home team at Romford, so he's still part of the team and he loves hockey so much. So being able to see him there, and obviously my nan comes every home game as well, and to be able to see them watch me play a sport that I wouldn't be in the sport without them too. So being able to do it at the level that I can do it at in front of them is very proud.
Oh no, I love that. Have you ever got a penalty and he's had to been the one to open the penalty box?
Yeah.
Does he say that was silly, that one, Jack?
he always says the same things. He always says, "Oh, the refs don't know what they're on about." I could do anything.
Hey, that's good. That's good.
Yeah, I could go and 2-foot tackle the person like a football tackle or whatever, and you go, "Nah, the refs don't know what they're on about. They don't." Says the same thing. But yeah, no, he's a laugh in there, to be fair.
Oh, I love that. Well, it's been great having you on, mate. Charlie always asks this question, so I'm gonna end it with this. But ahead of the final, ahead of the rest of the season, we're coming into the last kind of stretch of the season now, till playoffs as well. What's kind of your message to the Romford Raiders fans?
To just keep doing what they're doing. Like we said, discussed earlier, I think they've been fantastic this year, very loud, and sort of never give up on us. So as long as they never give up on us, we'll never give up on them. So just keep doing what you're doing, and hopefully we can bring that trophy home and also take you to Coventry again.
Nice one, Jack. Thanks very much for hopping on. Good luck in the final. I hope it's a really good weekend for yourself and the rest of the boys. And I don't know, I think we play you once more at our place, so I'll make
Believe
sure
so.
to say hello back at the Link Centre.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks for having me, mate.
Nice one, thank you. Go into that first game of the weekend. Actually, no, we won't because it started on Friday. I'm not going to forget. The Sheffield Steel Dogs starting their 3-game weekend against the Leeds Knights, and 3-0 up. They're cruising. 3-0 up. Sam Gospel, his first game back for a weekend. He missed a doubleheader against Peterborough, and he let in a couple ones which he definitely want back. He won't mind me saying that, straight through his glove. But the Leeds Knights, as they always do, Dan, they just come back slowly but surely. I think Walker Sommer actually had a chance to make it 4-0 on the short-handed breakaway. And Gospel made that big save. He made sure to make that big save to not let it go 4. And then it was just the Leeds Knights onslaught, and Sheffield capitulated, it's got to be said. And 5 goals in that third period, Dan. And that was it, 7-3. And it's just another game this season where Sheffield have been in control. They've had that lead and they've just let it slip.
Yeah, it's a tough one for Sheffield, especially obviously on their home ice, going 3-0 up. You'd think they can sort of, well, they, like you said, they had control of that game. You would think they could sort of take that game through. But Leeds Knights doing what Leeds Knights love to do, and they love coming back into games. And you could never ever write a Leeds Knights team off. They're always going to fight back. You've got some really young, fiery players in that team. They got some really clever players as well that can just sort of take the game by the scruff of the neck and just sort of go with it. And I mean, it's another game where Leeds have won in Sheffield.
They haven't beaten them this season. Like
And
they just cannot beat Leeds. They've
it's
actually
like
played some good games against them, but they just cannot get the job done.
it's like in the cup game, they went 2-0 down. Leeds come back, make it 2-2, and then they carry on with that. And it's just Sheffield just can't seem to sort of shut off those games. They had it a few weekends ago against Hull. They were obviously 4-1 up in both games, and it sort of went downhill from there. But it's something that they're going to want to work on. But at the same time, it is Leeds, so it's not too much to sort of be annoyed about because they are a very, very strong team. But it's just something for Sheffield to look at for the future, I think.
Well, it's not all doom and gloom, but we will get onto it. They did actually respond really well in the next couple games, especially on the Sunday. I was very, very impressed. They actually did what other teams do to them, but we'll get onto that in a bit. But we've got quite a lot of games, Anthony, to go through. I don't want to talk too much about them, so we'll get onto the one you were actually at. And it turns out it was actually good timing getting you on because it means you can talk about the game on Saturday. And the Bees just produce another upset. It's got to be said. They love taking points off these top teams. And coming into this, you'd say the Cats, they needed to win this game. But the Bees, they just have this special way of playing against these top teams. And obviously it starts with the goaltender, Max Wright. We've praised him. We've talked about him so much on this podcast, Dan, of what a good goalie is. And that is what his responsibility is. It's got to be said, he's that import netminder. And there's a lot of expectation. I think he's fulfilled that. But the D in front of him, Anthony, and I want to point out 2 players. And I think one of them, obviously you've watched many times, it's Mog, and he stepped up massively. But the other one is it Ty Cathcart?
Yeah.
I thought he was fantastic on Saturday. He really played the intensity of the game. Even though he's a small lad, he threw his body around, and you've seen a massive improvement in his game since he joined at the start of the season.
I was commentating on Bees versus Telford the other week, and the way the Bees do it, they kind of sort of pick people to sort of, and you vote on who man of the match is. And I very, very loudly said on commentary that Ty Cathcart got robbed. Ty Cathcart is probably, in terms of a upward trajectory in the improvement of his game over the last sort of 7 or 8 months, he's astronomically better than he was this time last year. And it's obviously playing minutes gets you better at playing ice hockey. There's no big secret to that. And the fact that the Bees have had a much shorter roster has allowed Ty Cathcart that ability to play more minutes. but he hasn't. It's not been to a detriment. He's not been thrown into the fire and not been able to do anything with it. He's gotten better. His positioning is better. His decision making is better, and he showed a large chunk of that. People will obviously put a lot on Max Wright, and Max Wright did make some really, really big saves. But Joe Scott's chucked the stat out to a couple of us on Saturday. The Bees have 23 points in the National Division League table. 11 of those are against the top three. So 11 of 23. So nearly half of their points have come against the three top sides in the division. And then the other 7, that's all they can do. If the Bees could beat anybody around them, they'd be much more in a playoff conversation. I've said the bloody-minded Bees again and again and again over the last couple of weeks because they have a switch in their head that when it flicks, it's one in, all in, and they unfortunately, Swindon, in those moments, they're really, really easy to read. The game plan's really, really easy to slow down, to clog the neutral zone. The forecheck disappears because you've got 5 men sat in neutral, and it's really hard to transition quickly when pass comes up the middle and there's just 4 men just on top of you. You can't do anything with it. And then they took their chances. The Swindon fans will be upset about it. There was a lot of grumping about the officiating, but ultimately no officials score goals. That's the sad part about it. And as Chris Callahan, the Bees photographer, said, country night became silent night by the end of it.
It was tough. I think, you're right. The thing is, right, the Bees have been that was their first away win, by the way, since October. Liam Morris told me. That is some stat, and it's been a long wait for those Bees players. But I think if there's, the Link Centre rink isn't as small as the Bees one, but it's not a big rink like a Milton Keynes or a lot of the rinks in our league. And I think they were able to play kind of their style of hockey quite well in our rink. They still managed to shut it down, and there was a few chances when maybe we got those big chances, but Max Wright made some. I remember that one right at the end on Aaron Now. He was in the slot and Max Wright got a hand to it. And those are the moments where Max Wright stepped up, but the rest of the D, as you said, just clogged it up. And I think the killer was, Dan, we got that equalising goal at 2-2. Ryan Wells is a really nice one. He just put it low past Max Wright. And 20 seconds later, it's a turnover, and the guy who was speaking about, Dom Gabai, he puts it straight in the back of the net, and that the crowd just went silent. All the momentum was shot just like that, wasn't it? And I think that was the turning point of the game, because I do believe if we didn't concede that goal, I do think we probably would have gone on to win that game, but we were so high in the emotion of just tying it up. And then Gabai, just like that, big game, big player. He steps up and got that goal, didn't he?
Yeah, and this is the team that we spoke about on the pod, that they struggle to get back into games.
Yeah.
And we've always said that if Bees can keep a game within distance, they're always in it. And I think that was a massive goal for Bees to, like you say, just kill that any momentum that Swindon got from that. Because after that goal, obviously you'd think Swindon would go on and get more like they have done in the past few games, and obviously they have done for seasons. But yeah, Gabai just coming in and just going up against everything and just sniping it just like that. And yeah, it was just total control back into Bees' hands again. And then once again, Swindon are chasing the game. And Bees, when the other team's chasing a game, like Anthony said, Bees just shut it down. Like, they just bring every player back and just put every player behind the puck.
Park the bus.
And they literally just, like, they'll sit on a 1-goal lead. Like, they won't chase the game. They'll just sit on that 1-goal lead, and then they just hope they can get another one if it equalises like they did against Swindon.
I don't blame them for it. You have to play. If you try and play this back and forth game against a team like Swindon with quite a bit more depth, goal scoring depth, you're going to get beaten. That's why teams can't do that when they go to Milton Keynes. We've talked about that before. So, yeah, Malazinski obviously did tie it up. It was a really nice goal, and he just kind of took the game by the scruff of his neck. We didn't try and play the perfect goal. We just come around, backhanded it, and caught Max Wright off guard. And that final 2 minutes, Anthony, was probably the best Swindon played all game. It was you could see the Bees were tired. We got that momentum, and that's what I hope we would try and do after we tied it up at 2. But Bees just got over the line. Max Wright made that big save, and then overtime. Anything can happen in overtime. There's so much space. And it was Liam Morris who got the overtime winner, Mo. That goal kind of reminds me and of the way Liam Morris back when he first signed for Basingstoke, just that pass over to him, a flashy little move, backhand, top shelf, and he gave it the good old shush to the Swindon fans, which a 13, 14-year-old me would have absolutely hated. But I look at it now and say, fair enough, that is a massive win for them, and it's a big confidence booster for them as well, Anthony.
It was the thing that was interesting about it was, I think when we were being honest at the beginning of the game, and I believe I said to your dad as well, my initial feeling with it was like, Cats, if Cats score, they're going to win this by 3 or 4. They'll get out of sight. And we saw in the first period where Swindon were a goal up and were toying with their food a little bit rather than just kind of putting the game to bed, because actually the big strength of a team like Swindon that is that quick when it can move the puck is a little bit of what MK do. Shock and awe, blow them away early, and then the job is done and you can all just cruising, especially given the fact that the game Swindon had on Sunday. And instead, they were forced into a massively attritional battle against a team that refused to die and wouldn't let them have anything. So Swindon ended up having to race around like headless chickens in the last couple of minutes to try and get back into the game. And then we're trying to put the game away. And I mean, overtime is anyone's, because I mean, you can say it's anyone's. Someone blew their coverage because the Bees had a 3-on-1 on Rennie Maher, and Rennie Maher has had probably the best year has probably had the best year he's had in the last 3 or 4 years. And yeah, he's not magic. I don't believe in magic. And so Rennie Maher wasn't going to like grow an arm out of the back of his neck to try and stop that one. But Mo's played a lot on D over the last couple of years, but people forget he's got that in his pocket. People also forget he headbutted Josh Martin in his first year in Britain as well, and now they're on the same team. So yeah, he's a man of many surprises. Is Liam Morris? Never underestimate it. And yeah, Ralph Sasenis started it, and I get a feeling that shush is going to start making a few more appearances between now and the end of the campaign from the Bees.
He's definitely a character, and I think it's something Bees did need. They needed that little bit of arrogance. I can't really, apart from Mo, can give it a bit sometimes. They don't have that player who's really arrogant and knows that he can be a really good player on his day, and he's added that to the Bees, and he's actually scored them some very big goals. And they got that power play goal, obviously, to tie it up at 1 before Swindon could put it to bed. But we'll stop talking.
The bench. That was the best bit about it.
I know.
The fans, the bench. Ralph Sasenis in his element. Beautiful.
Yeah, he is nuts. But yeah, Bees take the overtime win, and fair play to him. It was a point drop for the Wildcats. But we've got to get through to the next games because there's plenty more to talk about. And the Telford Tigers, I'm sure we'll talk more about their Sunday games. So we'll briefly go over the Saturday, but Bristol's only game of the weekend, and they fall to a 4-1 defeat to the Telford Tigers. And the highlight of this one was that James Smith backhand. You showed it to us, Anthony, past Tommy Napier. You don't see James Smith doing that often, do you, Dan?
No, you don't.
More of just that third line grinder will just score a goal in front of the net, but he whips that out of nowhere.
Yeah, I know, but the thing is, all these players have got it in them. Like we were talking about Morris in the Bees game. Smith's got it as well, and to do it on Napier as well. I
don't think Napier expected it, man.
No, he probably didn't. But yeah, it's tough. It's tough for Bristol. Like that's a tough one. Bristol at home against you got to say a struggling Tigers team. Like they have struggled this year, and they come to Bristol. You'd think Bristol could get that win and sort of get a bit of confidence going after their tough loss against MK the weekend before. But again, Telford, they can get it done. They can do it, and I think they had a bit of class come out of a few players, and just sort of played that road game that they can play. But you've just got to say it's a tough loss for Bristol because that is a game that you'd think they could get a win out of.
Yeah, especially with it being the only game of their weekend, giving it all. That's the one they would have worked all weekend for. Walensky did score actually a nice goal.
Yeah.
Bristol posted
his home debut, I think.
Home debut, yeah, because he missed last week. But it was a really nice snipe. But Telford, they dominated them as well. Over 40 shots for Telford and only 21 for Bristol. And fair play. We've not criticised, but we've said that the defence has been a tough one for Telford this season, and they've really shut that game down. So fair play to them getting that 2 points against Bristol. It was a slightly different game on the Sunday, which we'll get to. But we talked about, Anthony, the Sheffield Steel Dogs. They have that 3-game weekend. You can't sit and reflect on the Friday. against Hull Seahawks, and Hull have been in really good form, obviously beating Swindon in overtime the week before, getting that 4-point weekend as well. And they go 3-0 up again, and you're thinking, surely they can't do it again, the Steel Dogs. But they do just get the job done, and they ended up winning 6-2, which is a really good bounce back performance, isn't it?
I mean, Friday night, I can imagine Ben Morgan and Jamie Macca would have been spitting blood for what happened there, and then instead they just passed the track along to Matty Davey, someone that we've all spoken to. We know Matty is incredibly passionate. I would not want to have been within about 100 miles of that Hull dressing room by the end of that one. The Steel Dogs have been such a weird watch this year, and it's just, you have to kind of let it ride, because it's the first proper year of this new project, of everything that they're trying to do, of effectively turn Sheffield into a proper North American style hockey organization with development tiers and guys come a much more fluid movement up and down of players, and it results in odd things like this. I mean, it's, cohesion's a thing that's kind of talked about, but there's so many guys, everyone should kind of know the game plan. You would have wanted a response after pooing the bed on Friday night. Response obtained very, 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 very heavily, and at the expense of another local rival. Everybody's happy in Sheffield.
Which also would have been in the back of their heads. They gave away that 3-0 lead the night before. They gave away 2 3-goal leads against Hull last time. So it would have been in the back of their heads. But some of the big boys, just Sam Tremblay, he is one of my favourite imports in this league. Obviously watching him, and he has been massive for them this season. And Walker Solomon finally got back on the goal sheet after not scoring for a few games, which is unusual for him. So a really nice win for the Steel Dogs, who got 3 power play goals as well. And it's interesting, Finn Ulrich was playing for the Steel Dogs and Nordstrom had gone up to the Steelers. So a bit of rotation there by Steelers head coach's name, Aaron Fox, which I like, because I think Nordstrom has been really, really good for the Steel Dogs the last couple of weeks. So he's getting his opportunity, and it just creates that bit of competition as well, because I'm sure Ulrich will want to fight to try and get that spot back as well. But Dan, on to the next game. There's not too much we can say about it, because MK have won 8-0. They've shut out Solway, 7 different goal scorers. It's just the perfect home performance, really, when they're in this title race, and they just put it to bed. They did what Swindon failed to do against the Bees, and yeah, just a massive confidence booster for them.
I mean, it's the outcome that I would have definitely expected. You have probably the team that struggles the most on the road going to a team that plays the best at home.
Yeah.
I think is probably the most obvious outcome. I mean, it's just another game for MK where they can just sort of cruise through to the end. Get the lines rotating a bit. Don't push anyone too much, because you've got a tough game the following night. Chance to give Curlin a game, give him another game. Got another shout out for him, and it's just one of those games that MK is going to take the 2 points and head back home, and just keep rolling through the season. They're in a good position right now, and it's a game that I didn't think they were going to slip up on it, but. It's a game. It can happen in hockey, but this season MK seems to be a bit different.
Yeah, I think the shutouts could be a massive confidence booster going in, because they've got these next two home games for them are the biggest ones of the season against Leeds and Swindon. So that's always a confidence booster for it. So yeah, 8-0 win for MK. Not too much more needs to be said, but Anthony, just an absolute bonkers game to end Saturday. And obviously Peterborough announced that Luke Clark was going to step in goal, because obviously Levine, I think, might have a little knock, so he wasn't playing this weekend. And obviously Luke Clark got that really good performance against Solway up in Dumfries in the second game. I think he had a 9-3 save percentage, and got a big win for Peterborough. But it was just an absolute goal fest. And I'm not going to put this completely on Luke Clark, because when your team's conceding 2 short-handed goals, it's just one of those off nights for Peterborough, and you cannot let a Romford team who have plenty of goals in them, especially in those top two lines, the likes of Shewfelt, TJ, Reed, Morrison, Miller, all getting on the score sheet. If you give them sniffs, they're going to take them. They've scored so many goals, and that's what happened on Saturday night.
It's not like Romford don't need the momentum at the moment, given what's about to come their way in a couple of weeks as well.
Do, yeah.
The ever classic BOTW line: why defend when you could not defend? 12 goals in 60 minutes is a bit extreme. I do feel a bit for Luke Clark. I mean, I've heard different things about Hayden Levine. Some people have said he was hurt. Some people have said it was a pre-planned absence, that it was understanding. But then again, this is why Luke Clark is there. I'm a really, really big believer. If you don't believe that they can do the job, don't put them on the roster sheet, put them somewhere else. And Luke Clark is it's a really, really big jump. And he's obviously played, he played for Haringey last year in South 2. He's been taking minutes as well, along with Vinny Graziano in South 2 for Peterborough this year. And that Phantoms 2 side is really good. It's basically a shootout between them and Guildford for the South 2 title. So, irrespective, Luke Clark's probably getting a medal of some description potentially this year, whatever happens. But I said last week on my show that the Peterborough have flicked the slaver switch. The league title is out of reach, right? We flick the slaver switch and they hone in for the playoffs. And Peterborough's recent form has been really good. Then
4 of the last 5 they'd won before that, and
then they gave Luke Clark all the protection of they've sent him into a gunfight with a fork. Poor lad. It's some people say, it's going to sort of break his confidence. I kind of turn that around, because these are the kind of things that goalies need. Sometimes you just have to go through the fire to get better and come out the other end. Ultimately, Peterborough are not going to be happy with shipping 8 goals. They could, it could have been one of the 3 of us in there. They're still not going to be happy they conceded 8 at home. That's unacceptable, irrespective of who you've got in there. Peterborough. Counting them out, it's like punching one of those weeble wobble things. You knock them down, they'll come back and bop you in the face if you're not careful anyway. You put it in the bin, you move on. Good one for the Raiders, though. They desperately need to get some form, given the fact they've got to take on Leeds.
Yeah, they lost their last 4 games before that. They really needed that win, and it's a win on the road as well, which gives them a bit of confidence in those road games, because they really struggled away from home. And a nice little game for Reed Morrison as well. I know you mentioned he's had a bit of, for import standards, he'd had quite a slow start, but in this weekend he got 3 points each in both games. So it seems like he has settled a bit more, and for some imports it does take a bit of time for them to kind of adjust to the league and think, okay, actually it is a bit easier to score points than I thought. Let's just play this way. And he's ended up getting.
And we don't know what
this weekend.
He's been playing senior hockey in Saskatchewan in the fantastically named White Mud Hockey League, which is senior AAA hockey, which is it's semi-pro standard, but we don't know what that is. We can look at the bits and pieces. We can see it's a 16 league, but what does that mean? Like, how fast are the games? It could just be a bunch of ex-NHLers having a knock around, and it could be terrifying standard, or it could literally be the most beer league of beer league. So ask a guy to move 7 time zones away from home and get acclimatized to new teammates, to a new place. Let's face it, Romford's not Saskatchewan. There's probably been some sort of adjustment process for him.
Yeah, and to be fair to them, they said that one of the key points that I think Leish said is he's going to be really good for their special teams. Well, he's been on the PK, he scored a short-handed goal, and he's got quite a lot of goals on the points on the power play. So I think he's going to be I think for a PK which has really struggled, Dan, Romford has struggled a lot on the PK. I think Morrison is going to have a big impact on them for the rest of the season and come playoffs to try and get that percentage a bit better, because they've conceded a stupid amount of power play goals this season, haven't they?
Yeah, it's and special teams are very important in games.
Yeah.
Like special teams, we've seen it before in Swindon's games and stuff like that. Special teams can be the difference between a win and a loss. Like, if you're if you don't concentrate on them and then you look into them, they are actually more important than you think they are. And to sign a guy that is going to be good on the special teams, and then obviously he shows what he can do as well so early on, I think that's only a positive thing. And Leisham obviously knew what he was doing with that signing. He saw where they were struggling. He saw what gaps he had, and he goes and signs a player that fills those holes. And I mean, we're talking about acclimatizing and stuff like that. It's hard enough for an import to come into the team at the start of the season, let alone coming into the league halfway through or like nearer to the end of the year. And every team's a sort of, they're all settled in, all the players around you have settled in. So it's always going to be hard. But I mean, this weekend he's really shown what he can do, and I think this could be the start of quite a good end of the season for Morrison.
Yeah, that's what he'll be hoping. And we'll talk about the Sunday game in a minute. But the first Sunday game was the one that I was at, and it was a very, very big game. The Leeds Knights against the Swindon Wildcats. Obviously, the Knights taking that loss in Peterborough last Sunday. So they were looking to try and bounce back with a big performance in what you'd say their next big game. I know they beat Sheffield, but the Wildcats needed to bounce back from the Saturday game as well. And it was I'd say the Wildcats were the much better team in that first period, but Sam Gospel, I know he conceded the couple ones which he won back on the Friday, but flipping heck, is he back to normal now, back to that robot Sam Gospel, because some of the saves he made on Antonov were ridiculous. He did the splits on one of them. I sent that one in the chat, Dan, the one where he did the splits. I don't know how he saved that, but it's Sam Gospel, and he kept it 0-0. The Wildcats did get that first goal. Malazinski, a really nice move. He does the same move every time on Gospel, the fake forehand onto the backhand 5-0. But Charlie does say it is one of the hardest moves to save as a goalie, 5-0. Sometimes you try and cover it, but you just cannot stop it. And it went straight through the legs. But the key turning point of the game, Anthony, and this is what he has done so well over the years. This is why he's classed as one of the best players in this league. Some will say the best. Just 20 seconds later, Kieran Brown puts the team on his shoulders, makes a really nice play. I think it was Barron drew the defender away, and it gave him that little pocket of space, and Brown does what he does. And he tied it up and kind of just calmed all the nerves for Leeds. And they went on to win the game from there. And it's just what Kieran Brown does, isn't it? And that's what the big players do in the big moments.
All together now, one more time for the people at the back. Relentless. There is absolutely no. This is why I've said that I reckon Leeds Knights are going to win the title on the last day. One, because I like a story and a bit of drama, and secondly, because in these moments, Leeds know how to win. And there are critiques that I could make of Swindon's defence here, but I won't. I will save them for another time, because ultimately Kieran Brown has made a talent out of seeing the gaps that other people do not see. Because people can talk about the goal scoring. How do you score goals? It's either by being completely, just going through people, or finding the gaps that you can to make those things happen. We talk about his goal scoring. The guy's vision for what he does is unmatched for somebody of his age at this level. He is operating a level above most other British players. He chooses to play in Leeds. I'm sure Yorkshire is very pleased about that, and his mum's very happy he can pop home for a Sunday roast once in a while.
It's just, yeah, it was a big goal, and then Howlett scored a really nice goal as well. And it was just that 10 minutes. Aaron said it in his interview, that 10 minutes in the second period where we switched off for 10 minutes and Leeds scored 3 goals, and that's what we didn't do in the first period. And actually, the third period, we were really, really good. We put the pressure onto Leeds. We got that bounce, which Reid says scored to make it 3-2. We threw the kitchen sink at it, if you want to say that. We threw the kitchen sink at them. We pulled the goalie. It bounced around in the slot. I think Gospel made one final really good save, and then Buesa got that empty net goal. But it was a really, really good game. 2 top teams going at it. There can only be one winner. I'm gutted we couldn't take it to overtime, see what happens, get that third goal. But as you said, Anthony, Leeds are relentless, and those are the type of games which has won them the leagues and the playoffs in the past. And yeah, if they're going to do it again this season, it's those moments you look back to.
And Leeds doing what the Bees did to Swindon the night before. They made you chase the game, because when Swindon chased the game, when they're made to think a little bit more about what they do, it just doesn't work for some reason. If Swindon are able to get into their rhythm, as good as any team in the entire country at any level for when they get their wheels going. When the system works, the system works. I don't think we can argue that. They're not in the title race because they fluked it. You know, this isn't some sort of like mythical great run that's slowly petering out like Romford. Romford had a great start and they slowly started to fade back to kind of where a lot of us kind of expected Romford to kind of finish. Swindon could win the national division, but Swindon have this kind of do have this bit of deficiency where they will have brain farts, losing in the last seconds against Sheffield, losing in the last seconds against Hull, and if Swindon were 5% more consistent, we're having a really, really different conversation about this game, because you can't do it. You can't do that against Leeds, because even though Leeds are definitely not the all-conquering monolith they've been of years past, they're still better at it than anybody else. And I think that, like I say, that's why I want the drama. I 100% want the drama. I want everybody having kittens on the last day, because Dan and I are both neutrals and we're sitting in the corner twiddling our thumbs waiting for Basingstoke to come back. But one of the three teams has experience of doing what needs to be done in this moment, and it's not Swindon and it's not MK.
Yeah. But for my sake, obviously, I hope that Swindon can. Because
I 100% would not argue 1 second with the Swindon Wildcats as National Division champions. They play a fantastically entertaining brand of hockey. People like Ben Callahan, Tom Graham, some people have been my friends for over a decade. I would be absolutely delighted for them to be able to have that. My worry is, as I said, I see the deficiencies in Swindon's game that makes me feel like I can see the bits where they won't win it, and I probably can do that because I'm a little bit further removed than anybody else. And that's not to be negative, because I see the deficiencies of all three sides. But Sundays is where Saturday and Sunday is where we saw those deficiencies manifest, unfortunately, for Swindon.
Of course, I think one of them is unfortunate that you've seen Swindon when they have, because literally the month and a half where obviously
they were perfect, and then I showed up
and been so good, and that is
it was like last season, wasn't it? I saw them win 6 times. Every time I turned up at Swindon last season, they won and they won and they won. Then I turned up for the playoff game against Romford and they lost, and I was like, gone. It's all ruined and it's all my fault. Got kicked out of the Harvey for that one.
But what I will say is, I think, in my opinion, there is deficiency. We have seen deficiencies in Leeds this season as well, and they are not 100%. They are not as the team which they have been the last couple seasons. They've lost a lot more games. I think that is just because the standard of the rest of the teams has gone up as well. So it'll be a really fight. Don't get me wrong, Swindon aren't favourites in this position to go and win the league, and we'll briefly touch on it after we've finished looking at the rest of the games. But Romford, they need that form going into this final, and boy, they needed it. And it's a tough weekend for Solway. You said, Dan, they struggle a bit on the road. They haven't been able to get that home game in this weekend. They've also got another double away game next weekend against Swindon and Bristol. And I think Bristol, they'll definitely be eyeing up to see if they can get those 2 points. They could do it on Saturday as well. I'm not saying that, but Romford get a really nice 5-2 victory at home. As we said, Morrison getting on the score sheet again, Sylvester, and Sean Barry as well on the score sheet for Romford. I think's had a pretty decent season, actually. Obviously, he didn't play too much last season, but then he's come in full-time this season. And that's a big win for Romford, isn't it? And a 4-point weekend. I can't remember the last time they had that.
Yeah, and another big thing in that game is they conceded 2 goals. Obviously, they're having Owen Ryder in net. We didn't. I don't know if we forgot to talk about that, but
he played both games.
Yeah, he had a really good weekend, and Romford are a team that do sort of. We've seen them play those games where it almost looks like they just try and score more than the other team does. But it's really good to see that in that game. I know it's against a struggling away side in Solway, but it's also confidence for Ryder, confidence for Latram that he can trust Ryder, and for the D-men as well. Obviously, only conceding 2 goals and sort of being in control of that game like they should be at home. And I think that's something that Romford will be very happy with, especially when we're talking about that cup final, because when Leeds do come to Romford, they're going to want to make it tough for them. and they need to be a lot more controlled in the way they play. They can't be so erratic like they normally do. They can't throw everything forward. They can't just sort of play that end-to-end game. They need to be a bit more controlled. They need to be a bit more structured. And it's good to see that they can do that. And I know we're talking about two totally different teams, but they can play that way, and they just need to sort of try and imply that game into their cup final.
Yeah, it's so hot. I don't think any team can control Leeds, but they can try and do it to the best they can, whilst knowing they've got a forward core who can flourish in goal scoring, which will be the most interesting part, I think, about the final. Obviously, we'll talk a bit more about it next week, because that will be our preview for it. But it's a big 4-point weekend, as you said. I'm really happy for Owen Ryder stepping in. I respect Leish. I don't know what's up with James. There might not be anything, but I respect that Leish actually played Ryder after having a good game on the Saturday. He then played him again on the Sunday, and he got those 2 wins for him. I'm really happy for him for that, Anthony.
28th and 29th of December was the last 4-point weekend for the Romford Raiders, where they won home and away against the Berkshire Bees, if that would to fill in that gap. I watched Owen Ryder play a few bits and pieces for Invicta.
Oh, and Owen Ryder played in them as well, sorry.
Last year. Owen
Is
Ryder
he unbeaten? Is he unbeaten with Romford, Owen Ryder?
I don't believe he is, no. But the one thing Owen Ryder does have that not a lot of the other players in that Romford team don't have, Owen Ryder has a trophy. Owen Ryder has a South One Cup under his belt. Yeah. He's played, yes, it's a different level of skill, but pressure is pressure ultimately. And Owen Ryder's no stranger. They won the 2023 South One Cup, and they beat a pretty decent Chelmsford side to do it in Victor as well. So Owen's no slouch. So it's really great to. Obviously, it's come at the expense of whatever the situation was with Tom Brown, who'd moved down, who had a fantastic year, and is now unfortunately just. It's just not worked out for Tom Brown this year for a bunch of different reasons. Owen Ryder stepped up from South One, waited his chance, and I venture this is a bit about just letting Owen have some game time, keeping him sharp as well, and probably give Ethan James a bit of a rest. Ethan has played an awful lot of minutes this year, and there's a really, with all due respect to the teams they've played this weekend, Romford have got bigger fish to fry, and having your number one netminder with a little bit fresher going into that one is probably not the worst thing in the world, but also good for both Leeds and Romford. If something could happen, we could have Harrison Walker versus Owen Ryder in the cup final. All it could take is 2 incidents in 2 different places, and we could have a really different universe that we're about to walk into. So good for Owen to get some game time at national division level. He's got a lot of promise.
Yeah, I think as well, it's not just the amount of games. There's goalies who've played more games than James. It's the amount of shots and the type of shots and the type of chances which.
His middle name's Pirelli. His middle name's Pirelli at this stage.
Yeah, his body is having to do ridiculous amounts of work compared to maybe other netminders in the league. So yeah, nice little weekend off for Ethan James. The next game was an absolute thriller. And this one. It's a weird one because the Lightning, I think, were 3-1 up. And the Seahawks, as they've done all season, Dan, they just don't give up. They've got this mentality of, we know we can flip and score goals. We might concede quite a few goals in some games, but they can score. They've got probably the best goal scoring top 6 in the National League. Maybe there might be a few debates on that one, but they're definitely up there. And they fought all the way back in it. Lightning then got the lead again. It was a crazy couple minutes. Hull tied it up at 4-4, 30 seconds into the third. The Lightning then the Hull went 4-3 up. The Lightning then tied it 4-4. They then went 5-4 up in the matter of 3 minutes. And Hull didn't give up again. They then got a 4-minute power play with Spadafor got a 2+2. I'm not sure what it was. We're not going to comment on that. But they got a 4-minute power play. Didn't score on that, but then they pulled the goalie and tied it up at 5-5. And it's just only Hull can do this type of hockey, Dan.
Yeah. And I mean, Anthony was talking about it at the start of the podcast. MK can do a thing where they can just get at you quick and they can end the game like that.
Yeah.
And I think it's really big for Hull because obviously MK getting that lead But the fact that Hull were able to get back into that, because we've seen Hull before when they're like that in a game, they start chasing it a bit too much. They're almost some sort of bit like Romford in that way. When they're chasing the game, they just sort of throw everything forward, like every single player into the zone like that. You're leaving two guys high, and like 2-on-1s happen, breakaways happen, and against MK, you're gonna pay for doing that. But really, massive credit to Hull for getting back into that game and actually taking the lead as well. And sort of, I can imagine when they got that lead, they sort of calmed down a little bit. I think it was a bit of a hectic sort of start to that game. But as soon as they got that lead, they were like, right, we just need to like calm down now. Like we've got back into this game. We've got some sort of bit of control back, and we just need to keep going now with how we know we can play. And obviously, MK being MK, they're not going to give up either. And
they're like, no, you're not doing that. We're going straight back on you, mate.
But they're a team that have struggled in that whole rink. They are, and they have struggled against Hull in general. Like they do just love playing each other, and Hull have players that do turn up in those big games. Like you've seen players that, for good reasons, they hate playing MK. Like they hate MK, and it makes their game better. And I mean, Hull are just that sort of team, and it seemed like an absolutely unbelievable game as a neutral to watch that game. But if I was an MK or a Hull fan, I don't think I would have wanted to watch at some points.
Yeah, you'd be pulling your hair out. Just a quick shout out to Jason Hewitt. I know he's struggled a bit this season. He's been quite patchy. He had a really good start to the season, then he went quite a few games without getting a goal. And then he got that tying goal, which I can imagine was
he's a guy that loves playing MK.
Yeah,
well, MK hate Hewitt, and Hewitt loves playing MK because he doesn't like MK either.
He kind of thrives in those games, but he tied it up with less than a minute to go, and you're thinking, have they thrown it away? Is there shades of the past? But Anthony, I know they've still lost some games. They might have thrown some stuff away, but there's been this different MK mentality where they've won a lot of overtimes. I think they've won 8 overtimes, 4 or 5 on penalty shots, and they've only lost 3 or 4 of them. So MK have kind of got this mentality where they still do win those games, and it's that type of game. It might not be the prettiest, but that point, that extra point, that might win in the league title. Like,
there's no points for style at the end of the day.
No one looks back at that and reflects on it. You only look at the points and how much you got from the game.
I do think, though, that from a stylistic point of view, I do think they're obviously quite well set up. A very, very high speed team, good skaters that make a lot of use of space. And what do and people, you can talk about ice pad size or all you want. They are quite fortunate they don't have to play in Gosport, but like MK are used to operating with a lot of space, right? Yeah. So you then give a team of really, really high quality, high skilled skaters even more space to play with, which will generally work out quite well in their favour. And they've got a bunch of shootout wins into the bargain as well. Bristol hate them for it, but it means that what MK have is that they are just set up better, I think, than some other teams are. I mean, you play Hull. Hull is what Hull are, right? It's Vindaloo hockey. We're going to score one more than you, and that's how they operate anything. But it's how the Seahawks have been. It's how the Pirates have been. It's how the Stingrays have been. Albeit the Stingrays didn't score one more than a lot of people. But like, Hull hockey has a style, and that is what this is, and they live and die by it. Because ultimately, if you're Hull, you can't win playing somebody else's game, right? Like, there's no point trying to do what other people do, because they will do it better than you. What MK have this year that I think they didn't have last year is, having finally won something, they have to just keep holding on to that nugget, because the quality is there. Arguing that MK are a bad hockey team is stupid, right? It's not an argument you can make, because the league individuals, they're the best team of individuals.
Individually, yeah.
But Leeds are a better team. Leeds are a better team. And I'd argue Swindon are a better team on the whole as well. What this is for MK is a mental game. And actually what a lot of these things have been doing, nicking a point here, yes, they might lose the odd game, but keeping a point. It's like the Washington Capitals in the NHL. The Caps have lost lots of games in overtime and shootouts this year. But you get a point for losing in an overtime and a shootout. and that crawls you along. And in our league, where the league title means the most, all that's doing for MK is just they're in the mud, just clawing their way along a little bit more every time, because where Swindon or Leeds will get a 2-point weekend, MK will get a 3. Where somebody gets a 3-point weekend, they'll end up getting a 4 because they'll nick an overtime win and pull something out of the jaws of victory. MK can win this title. It's a mental game for
especially
MK. That's what they got to do.
Come this final part of the season, which is the crunch time. But what I will say is, Patrick Forsberg is really coming into his own now, and we saw shades of it when he played his first weekend down against Swindon. He had, obviously, you could still see he was trying to settle in and get used to the league, but he had shades where you're like, oh, that could be a problem for the league. And one of his goals on Sunday was an absolute thunderblast, and we saw him try that a couple of times against Swindon, and it's finally gone in. He scored a couple goals, and yeah, he's going to be massive for them, I think, come end of the season. They have Spadafor, who I think has been less erratic this second half of the season, but that first half he was very erratic. Forsberg seems like that level-headed guy, both ends of the ice, can add that offense, but he's a big guy, can shut it down. And the defense, I think, has much improved for me than last season. They've obviously got 2 import Ds. You'd expect it. I think they play on a line together as well. But Solder's taken a massive step up. Malik's obviously a year older, more experienced, as you said, Anthony. A lot of those defense as well have won that cup. They've played in those big games. So I think this defense, I know they've conceded 5, but this defense has a big part to play, Dan, in this final stretch of the season as well as Headley as well.
Oh yeah, I really like Forsberg. Me and Charlie have had a few debates about Forsberg. We've both got sort of different views. Personally,
Charlie debated something. I can't believe it. What a shocking surprise!
Yeah, it's not like him to do that. But I really like Forsberg. I think he's the perfect player that MK needed. I think he's a player that, personally, I think they should have gone for in the summer instead of a guy like Spadafor.
Yeah.
I think a guy like Forsberg is more suited to that team than a Spadafor. I just think having the big ice, obviously, at home, a D-man that can skate up and down the ice, he plays well.
Skater, isn't he?
He plays well with space. He can break into the zone. He's good on the power play. He can just sort of play every aspect of the game. And I think having a player like that, I think, is a lot more important to a team than having a guy like Spadafor, especially in this league. This league doesn't reward like heavy hitting players like it used to back in the EPL days. It doesn't suit that anymore. It's more of like a European game, having those long, perfect stretch passes up the ice, being able to skate up to the red line, dump it in, just reading the game like that. And I think Forsberg is. I think it would be cruel, I think, to pull Forsberg out of that team when they obviously potentially get 4 imports back come playoff time. I think it would be cruel to take Forsberg out of that team.
I'll say this, though. I think Forsberg coming in has been a blessing for Spadafor. He's now not the main guy. He's just having to focus on doing his defensive work now, and just play. He's got a good breakout pass. That's something I'll give him massive credit for, and that's why he's got a lot of assists this season. And you're seeing less penalties now for Spadafor. Don't get me wrong, he still gets a few now and again because that's the type of game he plays. But with Forsberg coming in and MK having that Brit talent going forward, which scores a ridiculous amount of goals anyway, their Brits have been unbelievable going forward. Spadafor now has taken that backseat role and is kind of doing what he's now meant to be doing. And Forsberg's taken that even bigger role, I think. And I think it's MK's to lose, but we could debate this a lot more as the seasons come down to. We've got a lot of big weekends.
They've got Forsberg in yet. Forsberg gives them better balance, is what they've got now, is the bigger issue there. Spadafor got a bit of a short shrift, and I still think he's gotten a bit of a short shrift from MK fans because it's just like, and the imports in general have gotten a little bit of a short shrift, and it's like they're not scoring enough points. Well, what are they expecting from Jordan Spadafor, a stay-at-home defenseman? You don't ask your window cleaner to fit your tyres, right? Guy's got a job, and Forsberg coming in has actually kind of given them kind of what they lost with Lee Jameson retiring. Like with Ross Green retiring as well, they lost defensive stability at the back. So Tim Wallace goes out and signs a guy to stay at home and will hopefully kind of pick up a few assists. But ultimately, as Dan's kind of alluded to, that's not the game that kind of happens in the league. You need defensive responsibility. But the forwards sometimes just can't generate absolutely everything. And actually, one of the things that MK needed with so many fast guys going down the ice, you need somebody to put the puck from there to there, which is, Swindon fans will sort of say that's why we've got Ed Bradley and Ryan Wells to do that kind of job. That still makes me scratch my head as a decision. But can you imagine if you swapped out something, if you had a Forsberg or a Ryan Wells in that MK team? The quality of transition has improved and the puck going up the ice has been much better. But it's let Spadafor be Spadafor, which is to stay at home. You lot all go wandering off down there and I'm going to stay back here and look after things, which is clearly what he's better at.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it's actually worked well. I hope Dylan Lawrence is all right, but it's actually... It's worked well for them being able to have two imports. And they've got that luxury of having so many British forwards, which are all doing really well. And I'll give them their credit, especially Max Stewart, who had a fantastic weekend again and scored the OT winner. What were you going to add, Anthony?
I will call this now. If he is fit before the end of the season, Tim Wallace will sit himself when Dylan Lawrence comes back.
Ooh.
I don't know if he will.
I think it's the right decision to do, because I think of the one person you should say who's like, our imports aren't getting enough points. Well, one of our import forwards is not getting as many points as he potentially could have done in the past. And I think where he is that little bit older and that little bit slower. And also, if you get Dylan Lawrence back, who we know can turn a game on a sixpence with the quality, for me, the right decision is Tim Lawrence to step onto the bench and watch the game and coach the game rather than play it.
Because I agree with you, but he'll also be thinking in the back of his head, my top six...
I want the last hurrah.
I do, but my top six is firing. I'm now on a third line, which is still unbelievable line, by the way. But he's now on a third line, and the top six are firing. Is he going to change it? I don't know, but it's an interesting one. And Lawrence might not even be fit. We don't really know. But we've spoken a lot about MK. We've got to get onto the last two games. Quickly, Dan, briefly speak over the thriller, which was at the Slough Ice Arena. The Bees going 3-0 up, but the Steel Dogs in the third period fighting back, and fair play to them. I actually did think the Steel Dogs would lose this game, purely because I know how tough it is to play in Slough. They're going to work your arse off. On that third game as well, after playing Hull and Leeds, I can imagine the Steel Dogs' legs, they were feeling it a bit. And it was the perfect first half for Bees, or first two periods, getting that 3-0 lead. But the Steel Dogs with two nice power play goals, one right at the end, Dan, as well, which I think they pulled the goalie for.
Yeah, they did, yeah.
Jonathan Kirk. And big players step up in big moments. The only penalty shot scored in the game after 5 rounds, I think, or maybe
5 rounds.
Rounds. Just again, fair play, Max Wright, for giving Bees a chance, but the Bees couldn't score, and Sam Tremblay with a nice little icing on the cake to win it for him. But yeah, just what a fight back from the Steel Dogs, Dan.
Yeah, I mean, you said it. Like, you could tell it was their third game in 3 nights, and going to a Slough rink is probably the last place you wanted to go. Bees obviously coming off a big win the night before. They're going to be coming into that game with really high spirits, and they're sort of feeling good about themselves, sort of confident players. Balaz was playing like he was last year, like he was everywhere on the ice. His two-way game was perfect. Scored a really nice goal to obviously start the scoring off. But Sheffield were just a step behind. The first 2 periods, they were just a step behind. They had moments, I'll give them that. They had moments where they would sort of cut into the zone, make a few chances, but Wright standing strong like he always does. And the D was standing really strong as well. And 3-0 for Bees. You think they're in control. Sheffield don't really look like they're getting back into this game. Bees will just cruise through. And Sheffield, they scored that goal. They needed that one goal, and then it looked like they just got a second wind. Like their energy was just back. And
momentum.
Yeah, and then they were in control. The last 10 minutes was all Sheffield. Like they were just going back in, line change, back in, line change, back in. And then Wright again was standing so strong. Like he didn't look like he was going to get beaten. But when Sheffield are coming at you like that, he is going to get beaten. And I mean, it was a massive fight back in that last 10 minutes from Sheffield, and really nice goal from Jonathan Kirk. I put it in the chat. It was a really good goal to tie it up, and yeah, it was just a proper battle, and it was really nice to see as well. The goalies were battling in the shootout as well.
Yeah.
Warburton stood really strong in the shootout. Both teams had chances in overtime, and it was just a really good game to watch.
Yeah, they'll be disappointed they didn't close out that win to get the 4-point weekend, but 3 points is still very good for the Bees. And they'll just be hoping. You never know in hockey. I don't think they will get that playoff spot. They are just a few too many points behind, but they're just going to try and end this league on a high. And if they can take points from some of those top teams, they will. But on the flip side of that, that's a really good response to Sheffield. And I believe they've done that twice now. They lost the first game on the Friday and then won both games to get a 4-point weekend on the Saturday and the Sunday. So they've done that twice now on 3-game weekends. And then the last game of the weekend, Anthony, was another thriller. The Telford Tigers going 5-0 up against the Peterborough Phantoms in 20 minutes. And you're thinking, wow, what has happened here? They almost went 5-0 up a bit too early because the Peterborough Phantoms fight all the way back with 3 power play goals and a couple from their depth players, Keen Aston and Foster. And before you know it, it's 5-5. And you're thinking, can Telford buy a win at home here? Like they really struggled to just get that home win over the line. And then they end up getting the 2 goals in the end. 2 big goals from Henderson on the power play, and then he got another one to cap it off. But just a bizarre game, and again, it's just why we love hockey, really, isn't it?
Yeah, one for the neutrals, one, and one to throw the stats in the bin.
I don't think
by the look of it,
coach would have been happy with that one, really. I know Telford won; they get the 4-point weekend, but
Tommy Watkins are going to argue with the win at this point. But yeah, you definitely. It's a bit of a strange one to get into a gunfight with, because they're actually 2 teams that I don't think particularly do well in gunfights in that kind of sense. Neither of them are particularly set up.
It's so weird.
I mean, Telford have obviously been playing with two forwards on D. Louis Newell and Adam Harding have been playing back on defence for some time, and with all due respect, it's not really their game. Although certainly, Adam Harding is. Louis Newell has turned his hand to anything when he was at Nottingham back in the day, and Adam Harding's a really, really good skater, being that sort of natural sentiment. So I guess it kind of works. Peterborough, of course, this weekend without Hayden Levine has obviously been a bit of a different one. If you're Slavy, you're probably frustrated more than upset, because I think to show the character to come back from 5-0 down is pretty impressive. I think that's something to probably just sort of bank in the locker of, we can rectify ourselves, knowing it was going to be a tough weekend. Putting in a guy that's not played that's barely played 20 minutes back to back in this division, and asking him to play 120 minutes is a tough ask for any keeper. If you're Peterborough, you're pleased that you managed to make a bit of a fist of it after being 5-0 down. If you're Telford, you take what you can get. On a weekend where Solway got no points and Telford managed to get any points at all, that's going to be massive in the potential for the playoff race. We can, regular watchers of this show will hear Charlie's mantra about Solway rattling around in the back of his head. Well, Solway are playing away from home. They got to pull some points on the road somewhere. Even though that kind of flow chart of Solway is like, are we at home? No, then it probably doesn't matter, because we'll just try winning at home instead. But they don't have a choice here, especially if Telford out of nowhere are going to, pull things out of the fire. Maybe next time don't give your home supporters such a big heart attack, because if you're 5-0 up, you should probably be done. Don't go to bed in the middle of the game, please. I'd hate to see the plus minus for some of the D. I know we don't keep plus minus as a stat in this division, but it's the same stats engine as the Elite League. It's there, and if it was there, then we'd there'd be a few guys probably just shutting the laptops and putting them away for
probably
a couple of days.
probably on their Instats somewhere. But
all the more frustrating then. We should have it on the National Division website. Let's track these things properly. Do a proper job of it. Don't do half of it. It's all there in the stats engine.
But yeah, it's a win nonetheless. And as you said, that was going to be my next point. They're now 1 point behind Solway. I know Solway have a game in hand. 1 point behind Solway. They've got a Bees double header, and they beat Bees away last time quite comfortably 4-1. And we know that the Bees, as much as they are good at taking points off the top teams, they have struggled to take them off the teams around them. So Telford will be licking their lip, and Bees have a game in the week as well against Peterborough. So Telford will definitely be licking their lips to try and get 4 points, and that will put them above Solway if Solway can't get any points this weekend. And you got to think Solway have been in that 8th spot, Dan, for over a month now. Maybe a month or 2 months. They've had that playoff spot. I wonder how they'll respond if they end up going outside of that playoff spot. And obviously, Anthony said, and I've said, they don't have a home game this week to bounce back on.
Yeah, and obviously we've been talking about it through the pod. Like, if they can just win if they can just win the home games and get the 2 points. But the thing is, it works when you're in a playoff spot. But if you're out that playoff spot, you need to start picking up points on the road. Like, you need to start getting points back, and you start getting more points than the team that you're chasing with. Like, you can't just rely on those home games. And the thing is as well, if you're relying on those home games and you do slip up at home, which is bound to happen, then what do you do then? Like, you can't chase a playoff spot if you're just relying on that. And Solway just need to find a way of just getting these road wins. And even if they pick up a point, it's better than none. And a 3-point weekend is a lot better for them, a lot more easier to sort of catch up with teams that are above them. So it will be interesting if they do drop down into that bottom 3, because they're going to need to change something to really get those points back.
Yeah,
I mean, we're staring down the barrel of some really, really big games here. Saturday, the 22nd of February at the Shark Tank, and then the final day and the final listed game, one of the final listed games on the webs, the final listed game for Solway on the 20th Sunday the 23rd of March is away at Telford. Think how massive that could be.
I hope
on the last day
as a neutral.
Although Solway's last weekend is home to Milton Keynes, away to Telford.
Nice.
Yes.
The schedule has done them horrendously dirty, but yeah, it's a tough weekend for Solway next weekend as well. Away to Swindon, away to Bristol. So I mean, thanks for the little travel, I suppose, because there's a holiday in about to get some business somewhere, but then. Yeah, Bristol and the Bees within a short space of time. I'll be in Slough for that game for that Solway Bees game as well. So there's like you say, the response here. There needs to be some sort of response this weekend, and it's going to be an interesting one because Solway, they've seen the book. The book is there on how to beat Swindon in Swindon now, unfortunately for them. That being said, I think they're probably targeting the Bristol game.
Yeah,
one of these games is much. Unfortunately, sorry, Bristol fans. One of these games for Solway is much more likely in their wheelhouse than the other ones.
Only game of the weekend, so they're really going to be
after a tough weekend where they're going to want to make a response themselves at home with Rennie playing his brother in the opposite goal. Good luck, Martin Grubb.
But anything can happen in hockey. I'm not going to write anything off. We've spoken loads. We have gone over our time a bit, but I've absolutely loved it. Having you on, Anthony. I think it's been a long time overdue. Just quickly looking at the league table, I know we've alluded to it quite a bit, but MK are top by 1 point behind Leeds. I don't think it's a stranger to anyone. They do play each other in a doubleheader this weekend, so that is going to be huge. But I don't think even if MK win both or Leeds win both, I still don't think it's over yet. They do play each other again in March. So this is not the last times they'll be playing each other. Swindon are 3 points behind Leeds and 4 behind MK, having played a game more as well. So, yeah, obviously, they're not the favourites right now, but I don't think you can write off Swindon. They've got a doubleheader against Milton Keynes as well, so it's all to play for.
Can we write off Hull? Can we tell our friends at the Slapshot Syndicate that we can shoot the fourth horse now because Hull aren't winning the title now? Can we do that now?
Yeah,
I was going to do it tomorrow night on the show,
unfortunately,
but I was going to do it on Wednesday night on my show. But I think we can probably do it now. That
yeah.
I love you, Matty. I love you, but Hull ain't winning the title. Seahawks for the playoffs. Let's go for that instead.
Well, I think one of our predictions, Dan, was they were going to get to the playoff final. I think that's what we said.
Yeah, or Coventry. I think it was one of the
especially if they need Phillips back. I think they'll be bookmarking Phillips to come back ready for playoffs and fit ready for playoffs because obviously he's had a bit of troubles. But that 4th, 5th, 6th spot. Again, just Hull, Sheffield, and Peterborough. Just take your pick, really. Romford, if they can have a good push at the end of the season, you never know. But I think, as you said, Anthony, their eyes are on that final, which I think
they're on the final they're in. They're on the final that they're in. The playoffs aren't playoff final is not a guarantee for them. They're in a cup final.
They're in a cup.
I wouldn't want to be Leeds. I would not want to be Leeds because they are going to get they're going to get an Essex, like a full blown Essex war when they go to Sapphire.
Essex, Romford fans, just
everybody down the golden line before face off, and then into the rink. The only way this would be better is if it was at Ron Valley Way with all the netting around it. That's the only way this would make it more of a hellhole for Leeds to have to go into. I would not want. Leeds are obviously the favourites there, but I wouldn't want that. I wouldn't want it at all.
Romford have never beaten Leeds. This would be some time to do it.
Only takes one game. Takes one game. Hi, MK.
But we've got a couple more weeks till that them games, and as I said, we'll preview it next weekend. And then the playoff battle is still, as we said, it's heating up even more. Just 1 point between Telford and Solway, but I think that's pretty much it. Obviously, we've got the big game with Leeds and MK this weekend. Is there anything else to add, Anthony? Before we head off?
It's been in a bunch of different places. I didn't go. I generally only go to one game a weekend, and I didn't watch any NIHL on Sunday because I was watching the Eisbären Berlin versus the Nuremberg Ice Tigers from the DEL. Rest in peace to Tobias Eder, who passed away during the week from esophageal cancer at the age of 26. That is no age to die. Cancer sucks. So just love and light to folk in Berlin and Munich and Dusseldorf and places where he played, because that was it was a hell of a game. Berlin are a fantastic organisation who managed that sort of tough situation really well. So special shout out to Liam Kirk as well, one of our own, having to go through that, because Ada was he was being treated, but he was still hanging around the team. The team kept him around, made sure he was still part of the group, and he was there as late as Christmas, still sort of around the team whilst being treated. Unfortunately, his health just took a really, really bad turn and passed away, unfortunately, really, really quickly. It was a really surreal evening watching that on Sunday whilst trying to do some writing too. But I'll just throw that out there. And if you're having a battle with cancer wherever you are watching this, keep chin up, keep rocking and rolling. Good times are coming. Yeah.
There's some sad moments of hockey, and I think people need to remember that as well. Like, it is real life. So thanks for bringing that up. But yeah, follow all our socials. Follow Anthony's banners on the wall. You've probably seen him on Twitter and on YouTube as well. But Dan, anything else to add?
No, I think that's all from me, actually.
Yeah, I think we've spoken long enough.
I've dragged it down. I've dragged the mood down, and now I'm leaving. Bye, everyone.
Basingstoke never dies.
Basingstoke never dies. We can get that in as there's two of us and one of him.
We've gone through this whole pod without really speaking about it, but I think that's for the best, because
do we want to talk about Basingstoke?
We can talk about this all day.
Should we talk? As Charlie's not here, should we talk about how Thomas Karpol's better than Tomasz Malazinski? Should we roll on that one?
That is a good one.
We are not having this debate.
Another time. Let's do that at playoffs.
Or we could talk about a treble winning team. That's another one.
Yeah. 2016 EPL where we beat Swindon to win the title.